You're the reason this family has problems, Dad announced at dinner. Everyone nodded. I nodded too. Then I became the reason they had housing problems by stopping the rent payments. Sometimes being the problem is the solution. Hey, Reddit. So this happened over the last 6 months and I'm still processing it. My family spent years blaming me for literally everything that went wrong in their lives. Then I stopped paying their rent, and suddenly I became an even bigger problem. Buckle up because this one's a ride. I'm Jake, 29 male, and I've been the family scapegoat since I could walk. My younger sister Ashley is 26 and has always been the golden child who could do no wrong. Classic dynamic, right? Except it got way worse than your typical sibling rivalry nonsense. Let me paint you a picture of how deep this goes. When Ashley was in high school, she totaled my mom's car driving without a license. Whose fault was it according to my parents? Mine. Because I should have known she'd taken the keys and stopped her somehow. I was at college 3 hours away at the time, but apparently that was irrelevant. When she failed out of community college after one semester, that was also my fault. I should have been more supportive and helped her study. Never mind that she'd told me to stop bothering her when I offered tutoring. The narrative was that my success made her feel inadequate, so her failures were really my fault for not managing her feelings better. The pattern repeated for years. Ashley got fired from her retail job. I should have helped her practice customer service. Her boyfriend dumped her. I should have given her better relationship advice. She racked up credit card debt. I should have taught her financial responsibility. Somehow, everything that went wrong in her life traced back to me not doing enough to prevent it. My parents enabled this insanity at every turn. Dad works as an insurance adjuster. Decent money, but nothing crazy. Mom does part-time bookkeeping for a dental office. They live in a 3-bedroom rental house that costs about $1,800 a month. Nothing fancy, just a standard suburban place with a yard and a 2-car garage. Here's where it gets interesting. I'm an industrial electrician. Started as an apprentice right out of high school while Ashley was supposedly getting her education. Worked my way up, got my journeyman license, and now I make solid 6 figures doing commercial electrical work. I own my house outright, drive a paid-off truck, and have a savings account that would make my parents weep. Ashley, meanwhile, has bounced between minimum wage jobs for 8 years. She's currently working part-time at a pet grooming place and living with my parents. Has been since she dropped out of college. She pays exactly $0 in rent because she's saving up for her own place. Been saving for 6 years now, with nothing to show for it except a closet full of clothes she bought online. About 3 years ago, my parents started having money problems. Dad's company cut his hours, Mom's dental office reduced her to 1 day a week. They were struggling with rent and I made the absolutely idiotic decision to help out. Started with just covering their shortfall that month. $300, no big deal. Then it became a regular thing. Every month, like clockwork, they'd be short on rent by anywhere from $200 to $600. I'd cover it because, hey, they're my parents, and I didn't want them getting evicted. Looking back now, I realized they were using my money to subsidize Ashley's entire existence. She wasn't contributing anything to the household, so my rent help was basically funding her free ride. But I didn't see it then. I just saw my parents struggling and wanted to help. The real wake-up call came 6 months ago at Sunday dinner. We do this family dinner thing every other week. I show up, we eat, everyone pretends we're a functional family unit. That particular Sunday, I'd just gotten back from a 2-week job installing electrical systems in a new manufacturing plant. Grueling work, 12-hour days, but the overtime pay was incredible. I walked in tired but in a decent mood, ready to zone out over pot roast and small talk. Ashley was already there, looking annoyed about something as usual. Mom was setting the table, Dad was carving the roast, standard setup. "Jake, you're late," Mom said as I walked in. I was actually 10 minutes early, but sure. "Traffic was bad," I replied, not bothering to correct her. We sat down and started eating. The pot roast was good, I'll give Mom that. She always made decent comfort food, even if everything else about family dinners was uncomfortable. Dad started talking about work, some story about a difficult client who didn't understand their insurance policy. Mom chimed in about drama at the dental office. Normal stuff, safe topics. I was actually starting to relax, thinking maybe this dinner would be different. Then Ashley cleared her throat in that way she does when she wants attention. Everyone immediately looked at her. Pavlovian response at this point. "So," she started, pushing her food around her plate, "my car's been making this really weird noise. Like a grinding sound when I shift gears." Mom made a concerned noise. "Oh no, honey. Did you take it to a mechanic?" "Yeah. I took it to that place on Maple Street. They said it's the transmission." She paused for dramatic effect. It's going to cost like $1,200 to fix. Dad frowned. 1,200? That seems high. That's what they quoted me. They said if I don't get it fixed soon, the whole thing could go out and then it'd be like 3,000. I kept eating my pot roast, staying quiet. I could see where this was heading from a mile away. This was the setup, and I was waiting to see how they'd deliver the ask. I don't have that kind of money just lying around, Ashley continued, her voice getting that whiny quality it takes on when she wants something. I'm barely making ends meet as it is with what they pay me at the grooming place. Have you been saving anything from your paychecks? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Ashley shot me a look. It's hard to save when you're making minimum wage, Jake. You've been at that job for 8 months. Even saving $20 a week would give you over $600 by now. I have expenses. Like what? Like everything. Gas, food, clothes, going out with friends. Life costs money. Right, but you don't pay rent here. And mom cooks most of your meals. So really, you're just talking about discretionary spending. Her face flushed. Not everyone can be as perfect with money as you, Jake. Jake, maybe you could help your sister out, Mom suggested. Not asked. Suggested, like it was already decided. I've got my own expenses, I said carefully. You make good money, though, Dad chimed in. Ashley's struggling right now. Family helps family. Here we go. The family helps family speech that only ever applied in one direction. I help every month with your rent, I pointed out. That's helping family? Ashley's face twisted into that expression she gets when someone mentions she's not pulling her weight. Oh, so now you're throwing that in their faces? Real classy, Jake. I'm not throwing anything anywhere. I'm just saying I already help out. Yeah, well, maybe if you'd taught me better financial skills when we were younger, I wouldn't be in this position, Ashley shot back. I actually laughed at that one. Couldn't help it. I tried to teach you financial skills. You told me to mind my own business and that you didn't need my advice. Because you were being condescending about it. I was trying to help you set up a budget. See? That's exactly what I'm talking about. You always make me feel stupid about money. Mom jumped in before I could respond. Jake, you know Ashley has always been sensitive about these things. You could be more understanding. Understanding of what? She's 26 and can't afford a $1,200 car repair because she doesn't save any money. That's not sensitivity. That's poor planning. The temperature in the room dropped about 30 degrees. Dad put down his fork and gave me that look he reserves for serious conversations. That kind of attitude is exactly what we need to discuss, he said slowly. What attitude? Your constant criticism of your sister. Your lack of empathy for what she's going through. I set down my own fork, suddenly not hungry anymore. I'm not criticizing. I'm stating facts. Ashley doesn't save money, doesn't contribute to household expenses, and expects everyone else to bail her out whenever something goes wrong. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. Right on schedule. I can't believe you're being so mean to me right now. I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. Same thing, Mom said sharply. You've always been too harsh with your sister. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table. Jake, we need to have a serious conversation about your role in this family's problems. My role? Yes, your role. You've been causing issues for years, and we've tried to be patient, but it's getting out of hand. I genuinely thought he was messing with me. Looked at all three of them, waiting for someone to crack a smile, or admit this was some weird joke. Nobody did. You think I'm causing the family's problems? You're always creating conflict, Mom said. Every time we have dinner, you find something to argue about. You make Ashley feel bad about herself. You refuse to help when we need you. I pay $400 a month toward your rent, and you never let us forget it, Dad replied. You hold it over our heads constantly. I mentioned it once just now, because you were asking me to pay for Ashley's car repairs on top of the rent money. Ashley was full-on crying now. See what you do? You make everything about money. Some of us aren't as successful as you, Jake. Some of us struggle. But you don't care about that, do you? You just care about rubbing your success in everyone's faces. I sat there in complete disbelief. This was actually happening. They were actually trying to make me the villain in a situation where I'd been bankrolling their lifestyle for 3 years. I'm not rubbing anything in anyone's face. I work 60 to 70 hours a week doing dangerous electrical work. I earned my success. And you think that makes you better than us, Mom said quietly. I never said that. You don't have to say it. We can tell how you look at us, especially Ashley. You judge her constantly. Dad jumped back in. That's what we need to address. Jake, you're the reason this family has problems. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I looked at each of them, waiting for someone to disagree. Nobody did. Mom nodded. Ashley nodded through her tears. Dad just stared at me like he'd proven some great point. I'm the reason? Yes, Dad said firmly. Your attitude, your judgmental nature, your constant criticism. It creates a toxic environment for everyone else. I nodded slowly. Interesting. What's interesting? Mom asked. Nothing. Just processing this revelation about how I'm apparently the source of all your problems. Don't be sarcastic, Dad warned. I'm not being sarcastic. I genuinely find it interesting that I'm the problem. The guy who pays your rent every month is the problem. Got it. There you go again, Ashley said, throwing the rent thing in their faces. I stood up, done with this conversation. You know what? You're absolutely right. I am the problem, and I'm going to solve the problem right now. What does that mean? Mom asked, looking worried for the first time. It means if I'm the problem, then removing the problem should fix everything, right? So I'm removing myself from the situation. I walked out before anyone could respond. Got in my truck and drove home, replaying that conversation in my head the entire way. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not the explosive, yelling kind of angry. The cold, calculated kind that leads to decisions you can't take back. Every stoplight gave me time to process another layer of the insanity. They'd really sat there and told me I was the problem. The guy who'd been subsidizing their lifestyle for 3 years. The guy who never missed a payment, never complained about the money, never asked for gratitude. That guy was apparently the source of all their dysfunction. I thought about all the times I'd rushed to help them. The time Dad needed money for a business emergency that turned out to be covering Ashley's credit card bill. The time Mom called crying about not being able to afford Christmas presents. So I'd bought gifts for the whole family so Ashley wouldn't be disappointed. The countless dinners where I'd listened to Ashley complain about her life while contributing exactly nothing to fix it. And somehow, I was the problem. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made up my mind. They wanted me to be the problem? Fine. I'd be the problem. But on my terms. This wasn't going to be some emotional outburst I'd regret later. This was going to be a clean, permanent break. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, just looking at my house. My house that I'd bought with money I'd earned through hard work and careful saving. The house that represented everything I'd built without their help. It suddenly hit me how much lighter my life could be without constantly worrying about their financial disasters. Inside, I grabbed a cold drink and sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop and pulled up my banking information. The automatic transfer was scheduled to go through in 3 days. $400 from my account to theirs, just like it had every month for 3 years. I stared at that scheduled transfer for a good 5 minutes. This was the point of no return. Once I canceled it, once I sent that text, there was no going back. Our relationship would be permanently altered. Good, I thought. It needs to be. That night, I logged into my banking app and canceled the automatic transfer I had set up for their rent. $400 a month gone. Then I sent a text to the family group chat. After our conversation tonight, I've decided you're right. I am the problem in this family. So I'm solving the problem by removing myself from it. Effective immediately, I will no longer be contributing to the rent payments. I will also not be attending future family dinners. This will give you all a chance to figure things out without my toxic influence. Good luck. My phone exploded immediately. Texts, calls, voicemails. I ignored all of it, turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I had 47 missed calls and probably 100 texts. Most were some variation of, "You can't be serious," or "We need to talk about this." I responded to exactly none of them. 3 days later, Dad showed up at my house. I was in my garage working on my truck when his car pulled into the driveway. He got out looking tired and defeated. "We need to talk," he said. "About what?" "About you canceling the rent money. Jake, we can't afford the full amount without your help." I kept working on the truck, not looking at him. "That sounds like a problem." "It is a problem. A serious one." "Well, according to Sunday's dinner conversation, I'm the source of your problems. So now that I'm not involved, you should be fine." "Don't be ridiculous. You know we need that money." "Then maybe Ashley should get a full-time job and contribute to the household." "She's trying. She's looking for better positions." "She's been looking for 6 years, Dad. At some point, you have to accept she's not actually looking that hard." His face turned red. "See, this is exactly what we were talking about. You're judgmental and unsupportive." I finally stopped working and looked at him directly. "Dad, let me ask you something. Do you actually believe I'm the source of your family's problems? Or was that just a convenient excuse to pressure me into paying for Ashley's car?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "You have a pattern of creating conflict. By doing what? Refusing to enable Ashley's irresponsibility, By expecting a 26-year-old adult to contribute to a household she lives in? She contributes in other ways. Like what? She helps your mother around the house. She does laundry and dishes. So she does basic chores that anyone living somewhere should do. Congratulations. She's achieved the responsibility level of a teenager. You're being cruel again. I'm being honest. There's a difference. And you know what? I'm done apologizing for it. You guys made it clear I'm the problem, so I'm removing the problem. Simple as that. Jake, please. We can't afford the rent without your help. The landlord already sent a late notice for this month. Sounds like you should figure something out then. What do you want us to do? That's not my problem anymore, remember? I'm the toxic one who needs to be removed from the situation. This is me being removed. Dad tried a different approach. What if we all sit down and talk this through? Clear the air? Pass. Jake, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You told me I was the problem. I agreed with you. Now I'm solving the problem by not being involved. This is the most reasonable I've been in years. He stood there for a minute, trying to figure out what to say next. Finally settled on, your mother is very upset about this. I'm sure she is. She didn't mean what she said at dinner. We were all just stressed. Funny how stress makes people reveal what they really think. We need you, Jake. Your sister needs you. My sister thinks I'm judgmental and unsupportive. She's better off without my toxic presence. Stop being dramatic. I went back to working on my truck. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being logical. You guys identified a problem. I'm implementing the solution. That's how problems get solved. Dad tried for another 10 minutes before giving up. As he was leaving, he turned back and said, "You're going to regret this when we lose the house." "Probably not," I replied. "But I guess we'll see." He left. I finished working on my truck, cracked open a soda, and enjoyed the peace and quiet. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation escalated in exactly the way I expected. Mom started calling from different numbers to get around my blocks. Ashley tried the crying voicemail approach. Dad sent emails about family responsibility and being there for each other. I ignored it all. Then I got a call from my uncle Greg, Dad's brother. Greg lives about 2 hours away and has always been pretty level-headed. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's usually decent conversation. "Jake, your dad called me. Wants me to talk some sense into you." "Hmm? And are you going to?" "Depends on what actually happened. I'm getting his version, which seems suspicious. Want to give me yours?" So I laid it all out. The 3 years of rent payments. Ashley's complete lack of contribution. The Sunday dinner where they blamed me for all the family's problems. The decision to remove myself from the situation, since I was clearly the issue. Greg listened without interrupting, then said, "So basically, they've been using you as a personal bank and got mad when you pointed it out. That's the short version, yeah? And they actually said you were the source of their problems?" Word for word. Dad announced it like he was revealing some great truth. Everyone nodded along. "That's messed up. Tell me about it. So what's your plan here? Just never talk to them again?" "That's the current trajectory." Greg was quiet for a moment. "You know they're probably going to lose the house." "I'm aware. And you're okay with that?" "Greg, let me ask you something. If someone told you that you were the reason for all their problems, then asked you to keep giving them money, would you do it?" "Fair point. I spent 3 years helping them out, paid thousands of dollars in rent contributions, never asked for a thank you, never held it over their heads until they started demanding more. And the second I suggested maybe Ashley should contribute something, anything, I became the villain. So yeah, I'm okay with them facing the consequences of their own choices. Can't argue with that logic. Your dad's not going to like my report back to him, though. Tell him whatever you want. My position isn't changing." Greg sighed. "Family stuff is always messy. Good luck, Jake." "Thanks. You too." That was 3 weeks after the dinner. By week 5, things got interesting. I got a call from their landlord, Phil. Nice enough guy, owns several rental properties in the area. We'd met a few times when I'd helped my parents with maintenance issues. "Jake, I hope you don't mind me calling directly. Your dad gave me your number a while back for emergency contact purposes." "What's up?" "Look, I don't want to put you in an awkward position, but your parents are 2 months behind on rent. They mentioned you usually help them out with payments. I wanted to check if maybe there was an issue with the money transfer or something before I have to take formal action." "There's no issue with any transfer. I'm no longer contributing to their rent." "Oh, they didn't mention that. They made it sound like there was some kind of banking problem." "Of course they did." "Nope, I just stopped paying. Family disagreement situation." Phil was quiet for a second. "Got it. Well, I appreciate the honesty. Just so you know, I'm going to have to start eviction proceedings if they don't catch up by the end of next month. Company policy." "Understood. Do what you need to do." Your dad mentioned maybe you'd be willing to work out some kind of payment plan? That's not happening. Fair enough. Sorry to bother you with this. No problem. You're just doing your job. After we hung up, I felt exactly zero guilt. They'd had 5 weeks to figure something out. Could have sold some stuff, could have made Ashley get a real job, could have cut back on unnecessary expenses. Instead, they'd apparently told their landlord I'd had some banking error and would be sending money soon. The delusion was honestly impressive. Week 6 brought an unexpected visitor. Ashley showed up at my workplace. I was on a job site running conduit for a new office building when she appeared in the parking lot, trying to get past the construction entrance. The site foreman, Randy, came to get me. Hey, Jake! There's some woman here saying she's your sister. Won't leave until she talks to you. Should I call security? Nah, I'll handle it. I walked over to where Ashley was standing by the fence, arms crossed, looking like she'd been crying. Again. This was her signature move. You can't just show up at my job, I said. You won't answer your phone. Because I don't want to talk to you. That's generally what ignoring someone's calls means. Jake, please, we're going to lose the house. Mom and Dad can't afford it without your help. Then maybe they should have thought about that before telling me I was the source of all their problems. That was a misunderstanding. Really? Because Dad seemed pretty clear about it. Made a whole announcement and everything. Ashley's lip trembled. We didn't mean it like that. You just took it the wrong way. How exactly should I have taken "you're the reason this family has problems"? We were trying to say your attitude causes conflict, not that you're literally the problem. Weird distinction, but okay. Either way doesn't change anything. Jake, I'm begging you. Please start helping with the rent again. We're desperate. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment when one of them finally admitted they needed me specifically for financial reasons, not because they valued me as a family member. Let me ask you something, Ashley. Do you think I'm judgmental and unsupportive? She hesitated, clearly trying to figure out the right answer. Sometimes you can be harsh. That's not what I asked. Do you think I'm judgmental and unsupportive? Yes or no? You don't understand what it's like to struggle. That's not an answer. Fine. Yes. Sometimes you're judgmental. Happy? Very. So why would you want help from someone you think is judgmental? Wouldn't accepting money from me just reinforce all those negative feelings you have about me? It's not about feelings. It's about survival. Exactly. It's not about family or relationships or caring about each other. It's about money. You need my money. So you're here pretending you want a relationship with me. That's not fair. Neither is being called the source of your family's problems. But here we are. Ashley's tears were flowing freely now. Please, Jake. I'm sorry about what I said at dinner. We were all stressed and took it out on you. Just please help us. No. What do you want me to do? Get on my knees and beg? I don't want you to do anything. I want you to leave me alone and figure out your own situation. How are we supposed to do that? Not my problem. You're all adults. Act like it. I walked back to the job site, leaving her crying in the parking lot. Randy gave me a questioning look when I got back. Family stuff, I explained. Looked intense. It was. Let's get back to work. The rest of that day, I worked with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. No guilt, no second guessing, just pure relief at having stood my ground. That weekend, I got an email from Mom. Subject line, please read this. The email was 4 paragraphs of manipulation disguised as heartfelt confession. How they'd made mistakes but family was supposed to forgive each other. How Ashley was struggling and needed support, not judgment. How Dad's hours had been cut even more, and they were facing financial ruin. How I was their only hope to avoid disaster. The last line killed me. We raised you better than this, Jake. Please don't abandon us in our time of need. I deleted it without responding. By week 8, they were officially being evicted. Phil called me again to let me know the court date was set, and they had 30 days to vacate the property. Just thought you should know, he said. In case you wanted to, I don't know, help them move or something. Appreciate the heads up? You're really not going to help them? Nope. Can I ask why? Not judging, just curious. So I told him the abbreviated version. The years of being blamed for everything. The Sunday dinner where they officially declared me the problem. The decision to remove myself from the situation. Phil listened, then said, yeah, okay, I get it. That's rough. It is what it is. For what it's worth, your parents tried to use you as a reason to get an extension. Said you were having a medical crisis and would be helping them soon as you recovered. I actually laughed. A medical crisis? Yeah. I asked what kind and your mom got vague about it. That's when I figured something else was going on. They're desperate. Desperate people say desperate things. True enough. Well, good luck with everything. Sorry your family situation is complicated. Thanks, Phil. You too. During those 30 days, the attempts to contact me intensified. Mom started leaving voicemails that were clearly scripted, probably written by Dad. Long speeches about forgiveness, about how families overcome obstacles together, about how I was breaking her heart. Ashley tried the friend angle, having mutual acquaintances reach out to me with messages about how worried they were about her. One girl I'd gone to high school with actually cornered me at the grocery store. "Hey, Jake, haven't seen you in forever. Listen, I ran into Ashley the other day and she mentioned you guys were going through something. She seems really torn up about it." "We're fine," I said, trying to move past her to the checkout. "She said you guys might lose your childhood home. That must be so hard for everyone. It's their rental house, not my childhood home. And it's their responsibility, not mine." The girl looked taken aback by my tone. "Oh, I just thought, since you're family. Family works both ways. Have a good one." I left her standing there, looking confused. Probably went right back to Ashley to report that I was being cold and unfeeling. Perfect. Let them paint me as the villain. I'd rather be the villain than the mark. Dad tried the professional angle, having a coworker of his who I'd met once call me about a business opportunity. Took me 5 minutes to figure out it was just a ploy to get me on the phone so Dad could ambush the call. "Jake? Hey, it's Tom from your dad's office. Listen, your dad's here and really needs to talk to you about something important. Can I put him on?" "No thanks, Tom. Tell him to email me if it's actually important. It's about the family situation. He's really struggling here. Then he should probably figure out his priorities. Have a good day." I hung up before Tom could respond. Blocked his number too, just in case they tried using it again. The creative desperation was almost impressive. They tried everything except the one thing that might have actually worked: taking responsibility for their own situation and making real changes. Day 29 of their 30-day notice, Dad called me from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Jake, thank God. Listen, we need to talk face to face. This has gone on long enough. I disagree. Please, just meet me for coffee tomorrow morning. 1 hour. If you still don't want to help after we talk, fine, but give me 1 hour." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Picked a coffee shop near my place, showed up 15 minutes early to get settled. Dad arrived right on time, looking worse than I'd ever seen him. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes that needed pressing, the whole 9 yards. He sat down across from me with his coffee, clearly struggling with how to start. "Thank you for meeting me," he finally said. "You've got an hour." "Right, okay. Jake, I'm going to be completely honest with you. We made a huge mistake." "Which one specifically?" "All of them. The dinner, the things we said, the way we've treated you, all of it was wrong." "Okay." He blinked, clearly expecting more. "That's it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say?" "I'm apologizing. I'm admitting we were wrong. I heard you. I'm just not sure why you think an apology fixes 3 years of taking advantage of me, followed by blaming me for your problems. It doesn't fix it. I know that. But it's a start." "A start toward what?" "Rebuilding our relationship, being a real family again." I sipped my coffee, watching him squirm. "Dad, let me ask you something. If you weren't being evicted, would you be here apologizing?" "That's not fair." "It's a simple question. If everything was fine financially, would you be sitting here telling me you were wrong?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer, probably. Because we both knew the truth. "That's what I thought," I said. "Jake, please. We're going to be homeless in 2 days. Your mother is having panic attacks. Ashley hasn't stopped crying in a week. We need help. Get help from someone else then." "There is no one else. We've borrowed from everyone we can. Greg said no. Your aunt said no. Everyone's tapped out. Sounds like a planning problem. How can you be so cold about this?" "I'm not being cold. I'm being rational. You created this situation by living beyond your means, refusing to make Ashley contribute, and using me as a personal ATM. Now you're facing the consequences. That's not cold. That's just cause and effect. We're your family. You made it pretty clear at that dinner that being family doesn't mean much when it comes to respecting people or treating them with basic decency." Dad put his head in his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? Just tell me, and I'll do it." This was it. The moment where I could either save them or let them drown. The old Jake would have caved immediately, would have felt guilty and opened his wallet. But I wasn't the old Jake anymore. "I don't want you to say or do anything," I told him. "I want you to figure out your own life. Get a second job. Make Ashley get a full-time job. Downsize to something you can actually afford. Stop living like someone else is going to bail you out. And you're just going to watch us struggle? I watched myself struggle through college while you paid for Ashley's car and spending money. I watched myself work 70-hour weeks while Ashley lounged around your house rent-free. Yeah, I'm going to watch you struggle. Maybe you'll learn something from it. You're really not going to help us. No. Dad stood up, looking defeated. Then I guess we're done here. I guess so. He walked out without another word. I finished my coffee, feeling strangely calm. The situation was completely out of my hands now. And honestly, that felt great. 2 days later, they moved out of the house. Greg texted me to let me know they'd found a 2-bedroom apartment in a cheaper part of town. All 3 of them crammed into 900 square feet, which was apparently causing all sorts of new drama. Ashley's furious about sharing a bedroom with your mom, Greg reported. Your dad's sleeping on the couch. It's a mess. They'll figure it out. You really don't feel bad about any of this? Not even a little bit. Harsh. Maybe, but fair. 3 months went by. I heard through the family grapevine that Ashley had finally gotten a full-time job at an animal hospital. Mom had picked up more hours at the dental office. Dad was working 6 days a week. They were making it work, barely, but they were making it. Good for them. Month 4 brought an unexpected letter in my mailbox. Handwritten from Mom. Dear Jake, it started. I'm not writing to ask for money or help. I'm writing because I need to say something I should have said months ago. You were right about everything. About Ashley, about our financial situation, about the way we treated you. We took advantage of your success and generosity, then blamed you when you finally stood up for yourself. That was wrong. You didn't deserve any of it. I hope someday you can forgive us, but I understand if you can't. We're figuring things out on our own now, like we should have been doing all along. Ashley has a full-time job and actually seems happier working regularly. Your father and I are managing our own finances and learning to live within our means. It's hard, but it's teaching us things we should have learned years ago. I miss you. I miss my son. But I understand why you're done with us. Just know that I'm proud of you for standing your ground. Even though it hurt, you're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times. It was either genuine growth or a really good manipulation attempt. Either way, it didn't change anything for me. I put the letter in a drawer and went on with my life. Month 6, which brings us to present day. Ashley called me from a new number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Jake, it's Ashley. Please don't hang up. What do you want? Nothing. I mean, I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted to tell you something. Go ahead. You were right. About everything. I was a spoiled brat who refused to take responsibility for my own life. I blamed you for my problems because it was easier than admitting I was the problem. And I'm sorry. I didn't say anything, waiting to see where this was going. I've been working full-time at the animal hospital for 3 months now. I'm paying Mom and Dad rent. I'm saving money. And you know what? I'm not miserable. I'm actually kind of proud of myself for once. I wish it hadn't taken all this for me to grow up. But here we are. Good for you, I said, and meant it. I don't expect you to forgive me or want a relationship with me. I just wanted you to know that you were right to walk away. We needed to hit rock bottom before we change. Sounds like you're doing better. We are. It's hard, but we're making it work. And we're doing it without expecting you to save us, which feels important somehow. It is important. Yeah. Well, that's all I wanted to say. Take care of yourself, Jake. You too, Ashley. She hung up. I sat there for a minute, processing the conversation. Maybe they had actually learned something. Maybe the struggle had forced them to grow up. Or maybe they'd just gotten better at manipulation. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Parents took a second mortgage. For my brother, now they want me to give up my wedding for him. Hey Reddit, my brother's the golden child. I'm the wallet. I paid to keep my parents' house standing. But when my wedding came up, they tried to pull the dumbest stunt yet. Let me back up and explain. I'm Ethan, 27 male. I'm engaged, my wedding is in April, and I should be stressing about flowers or playlists. Instead, I'm dealing with my family. Mainly my older brother Kyle, 30 male, my mom, and my grandma. They've spent my entire life acting like Kyle's the sun, and the rest of us are supposed to orbit around him. The funny part? I wasn't the only one who saw it. My sister Emily, 29 female, grew up in the same house, and she's been calling out the favoritism for as long as I can remember. The difference is, they never listened to her either. When I turned 8, I got a board game for my birthday. Kyle was 11, and for his birthday that same year, he got a brand new mountain bike. I remember asking Mom why his present was way bigger than mine. Her response, "He's older, Ethan. He has more responsibilities. He deserves it." Emily, who was 10 at the time, cut in, "That doesn't even make sense. What responsibility comes with riding a bike? Grandma immediately snapped, "Don't talk back, young lady. Your brother is special." That was her favorite line. Anytime Kyle broke something, anytime he failed at something, anytime Emily or I asked a question, it always came back to, "He's special." You don't understand. A year later, I saved up allowance for months to buy an RC car. I was so proud of it. Kyle decided it would be hilarious to launch it off the porch steps. It shattered on impact. I cried, of course, and went to Mom. She sighed and said, "You should have shared nicer with your brother." Emily was right there. "Shared nicer? He destroyed it, Mom. He should replace it." Grandma's face twisted like Emily had said the worst thing in the world. "How dare you talk about your brother that way?" He didn't mean it. So Kyle walked off. No punishment, no consequences. I lost my car, Emily got scolded, and life moved on like it always did. Kyle first, everyone else last. By the time we hit our teens, the pattern was set in stone. Kyle came home with a report card full of B's and C's. Mom declared it a victory, said she was proud of him for trying hard, and took us all out for dinner. A few weeks later, I brought home straight A's. Emily did too. We got a quick, "Good job, that's expected." That was it. Emily muttered under her breath that night, "So Kyle gets steak for being average, and we get a pat on the head for working our asses off." I laughed, but there was no point saying it louder. Mom and Grandma never cared to hear it. Then came the car situation. When I turned 16, I was allowed to use the family car sometimes. But Kyle always got priority. One weekend, he dented the bumper pulling out of a parking lot. He tossed the keys on the counter and went upstairs like nothing happened. The next morning, Mom told me I needed to stop being so mouthy and set a better example. Emily stood up for me. "He dented the car, Mom. Why are you blaming Ethan?" Mom shot her down. "You don't know what you're talking about. Your brother is under pressure." That phrase, "under pressure," was just another excuse on the list. When Kyle was supposed to be the first in our family to graduate from a big university, my parents took out a second mortgage to pay for his tuition and some startup idea he bragged about. 2 years later, he dropped out. The startup never happened. The money? Gone. I asked what the plan was now. Grandma jumped in immediately. "Don't kick him while he's down. He's still figuring things out." Emily rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "You just flushed a house worth of money down the toilet, and you're telling Ethan not to be upset? Unreal." Mom told her to mind her tone. Meanwhile, Kyle stayed at home, slept in, and came up with a new career plan every few months that never went anywhere. When I finished school and landed a decent job, Mom and Dad were on the edge of losing the house. That second mortgage was crushing them. I stepped in. I started sending them $900 a month to help keep the place afloat. Not because I had to, but because I didn't want to see my parents homeless. Emily told me not to do it. She said, "You're just going to enable them the same way they enabled Kyle." She wasn't wrong. But at the time, I felt like I was doing the right thing. The gratitude never came. Some months I didn't even get a thank you. I wasn't added to the deed. I didn't get a promise that the money would come back to me someday. I was just the dependable one, the reliable wallet. Meanwhile, Kyle kept living there rent-free most months. Aside from the occasional $300 he'd toss them when he felt like it, Grandma still called him her special boy. Mom kept making excuses. Dad hid behind his newspaper. Emily stayed out of the house more and more as she got older. She told me once, "The only way to survive this family is to stop expecting them to change." She was right, but I wasn't ready to admit it back then. About 6 weeks before the wedding, Mom texted me, "Come over, we need to talk. It's important." No details, no context. With my family, important usually meant something for Kyle. When I pulled up, Emily's car was already there. That was a surprise. If Mom wanted her here too, it wasn't going to be a normal conversation. I walked in, and the scene looked staged. The TV was muted, which almost never happens in that house. Dad sat in his recliner, flipping through the same envelope for 5 minutes. Grandma sat on the couch like she owned the place, her cane leaning against her leg, and Kyle was sprawled in the middle like it was his throne. Mom stood with her arms crossed, clearly waiting for me. Emily sat on the far chair, arms folded, face tight. She gave me a look like, "Just wait until you hear this crap." "Sit down, Ethan," Mom said. Her voice had that fake sweetness she always used when she was about to say something awful. I sat, glanced at Emily, and braced myself. Mom started with, "You know how much we want this wedding to be special." I cut her off. "For me and Sam, right? Just making sure." Kyle smirked like he knew a secret. Grandma leaned forward, smiling that smug smile she's perfected over 70 years. Mom pushed on. "Since it's such a beautiful event, maybe it could be about more than one couple." Maybe it could also be a chance for your brother to... Grandma jumped in. Family should share joy. That's only right. Kyle finally said it. I want to propose to Rachel at your wedding. During the reception speeches. Imagine how perfect it'll be. Everyone clapping, everyone watching, I laughed. Not a happy laugh, just one of those sharp, short ones. Right. Should I hand you my tux too? Or just step aside so you can marry her on the spot? Kyle's grin dropped. Mom frowned. Grandma shook her head at me like I was the unreasonable one. Mom said, Don't be like that. It's just one moment. You'll still have your vows, your dances. Kyle just wants to celebrate love too. Emily finally spoke. Mom, do you hear yourself? Ethan's paying for this wedding. He's the groom. And you're seriously asking him to let Kyle hijack it? Hijack? Grandma snapped. What a horrible word. He only wants to be part of the joy. Emily shot back. He can propose literally anywhere else. Why does it have to be Ethan's wedding? Because it's the perfect setting, Kyle said, looking at her like she was dumb. I don't have the money for some big event. This way I can make it special for Rachel too. I leaned forward. No, it's not happening. Not in the ceremony, not at the reception, not in the parking lot. Nowhere. Mom's voice got sharper. Why do you always make things difficult? Kyle is scared Rachel might leave. This could save their relationship. Emily scoffed. If your relationship depends on stealing someone else's wedding, it's already dead. Grandma turned on her. Don't you dare talk like that about your brother. He's sensitive. You've always been too harsh, Emily. Emily folded her arms tighter. No, I've just always been honest. You don't like honesty when it's not about praising Kyle. I added, exactly. And by the way, generous? You want generous? I've been sending you $900 every month to keep this house standing. $900, while he lives here rent-free. And you want to call me selfish because I won't let him turn my wedding into a sideshow? The room went quiet for a second. Dad shifted in his chair, but didn't look up from his envelopes. Kyle raised his voice. So what? You're just cutting me out completely? Over 1 minute? I looked him dead in the eye. Kyle, you don't need my wedding to make yourself look like a fool. You've been doing that just fine on your own. Grandma gasped like I'd slapped her. How dare you talk that way in front of your mother and grandmother? Emily said flatly, maybe he wouldn't talk that way if you didn't excuse everything Kyle does? Mom snapped at her. Don't start, Emily. You're supposed to support your brother. Emily laughed. Support him? He's 30 years old and still acts like he's 12. Maybe if you stopped babying him, he wouldn't need to crash other people's weddings to feel important. Kyle's face went red. You're just jealous I get more attention than you ever did. Emily didn't even flinch. If this is what attention looks like, you can keep it. I stood up. This conversation is over. I'm not funding your mortgage while you all try to hand my wedding to him. The $900 stops now. Figure it out. Mom looked shocked. You can't do that. We need your help. I shrugged. Then maybe you should have thought twice before siding with Kyle's circus act. Grandma's eyes narrowed. You'll regret this, Ethan. Family comes first. Yeah, I said, heading for the door. And it's time I put my future family first. Sam and me. The rest of you can live with your choices. As I left, Emily got up too. She said over her shoulder, for once I actually agree with Ethan 100%. You should all be embarrassed. The silence in that room was louder than any yelling. When I pulled into my driveway that night, Kyle's car rolled up right behind me. He didn't even give me time to get inside before he was out of the car, slamming the door, storming across the lawn like he was the one who'd been wronged. I didn't say a word at first. I unlocked my front door, stepped inside, and left it open. He followed me in without asking, which is pretty much how he does everything. No permission needed, because in his head the world is already his. The second the door shut, he started yelling. You ruined everything. Do you even realize what you've done? Rachel was expecting something big, and now I've got nothing. I kicked off my shoes and walked into the kitchen like it was just another Tuesday. You could always propose at Taco Bell, I said. They've got a dollar menu. Fits your budget. That set him off. He slammed his hands on my counter. You think this is funny? You embarrassed me in front of Mom and Grandma. You turned them against me. I grabbed a glass of water and leaned against the fridge. No, Kyle, you embarrassed yourself. And Mom and Grandma? They didn't turn. They've always been on your side. The difference is, I finally stopped playing along. He jabbed a finger at me. You're financially blackmailing them, cutting off the money just to get your way. That's low, even for you. I almost laughed. Blackmail? That would mean I'm threatening to expose something. I'm just stopping payments. You know, like a normal person does when they get tired of being used. He paced like a caged animal. Do you know what's going to happen now? Mom and Dad can't afford the mortgage without you. You're going to make them lose the house. All because you can't share a stupid spotlight for 1 minute. I set the glass down and looked him dead in the eye. You mean the house they almost lost because of you? The house they took a second mortgage on so you could play entrepreneur for 2 years before dropping out? That house? Yeah, not my problem anymore. He went quiet for half a second, then his voice went up again. Rachel is going to leave me, Ethan. You don't get it. This was my last chance to prove myself. Now she's going to think I'm a loser. I tilted my head. Kyle, if she's leaving, it's not because you didn't hijack my wedding. It's because you're 30 years old, still living at home, and your entire career plan is waiting for other people to hand you opportunities. A ring won't fix pathetic. His face went red. You're jealous. You've always been jealous because Mom and Grandma love me more. Admit it. That actually made me laugh. Jealous? Of what? Watching you blow thousands of dollars and end up living in your childhood bedroom at 30? Yeah, that's every little brother's dream. He slammed his fist on the counter again. You think you're better than me just because you got lucky with your job. No, Kyle, I said calmly. I think I'm better than you because I actually work. Because when I screw up, I fix it myself instead of crying to Mom and Grandma until someone bails me out. He shook his head like he couldn't believe me. You're unbelievable. You've always had it easy. You don't know what it's like to have expectations on you. That one almost made me choke. Expectations? Are you serious? Your expectations were what? Passing your classes? Showing up once in a while? Maybe not wrecking the car? Meanwhile, I was expected to cover for you, take the blame for you, and then send $900 a month to clean up after you. Don't talk to me about expectations. He pointed at me again. If you don't let me do this, I'll show up anyway. I'll grab the mic and I'll propose in front of everyone. You won't be able to stop me. I didn't even flinch. You try it, Kyle, and I'll have you tossed out so fast you won't even make it to, will you marry me? He sneered. You wouldn't dare. He sneered. You wouldn't dare. I'd dare, I said, leaning back on the counter. And Sam's fully on board. You try it, you're out. No second chances. He stared at me like he couldn't believe I'd actually thought ahead. You're pathetic. Using muscle to solve your problems. Rachel is going to hate you for this. No, she's going to hate you, I said flatly. Because you're trying to guilt trip your little brother into sacrificing the biggest day of his life so you can band-aid a failing relationship. He didn't know what to say for once. He just stood there, fists clenching and unclenching, breathing heavy. Finally, he muttered, You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting me out. I walked to the door, opened it, and gestured. Out. My house, my rules. He stomped past me, muttering under his breath about how ungrateful I was, how I owed him, how the family would never forgive me. I shut the door behind him and locked it. Through the window, I watched him sit in his car, pounding the steering wheel before peeling off down the street. I didn't feel relief. I just felt tired, because I knew one thing for sure. If he was this angry already, he wasn't done. And neither were Mom and Grandma. The morning after Kyle barged into my house, my phone started buzzing before I'd even finished brushing my teeth. It was Mom. I let it ring out. She called again. Then Grandma. Then Mom again. I finally picked up on the third round just to get it over with. Ethan, Mom started, her voice already sharp. What on earth were you thinking? You made your grandmother cry last night. Do you even care what this is doing to her? I sat down at the table, put her on speaker, and rubbed my forehead. Mom, Kyle tried to hijack my wedding. He showed up at my house screaming at me. And you're worried about Grandma crying? She's your grandmother, Mom snapped. You can't talk to her the way you do. She's hurt. She's hurt because she wanted me to hand over my wedding like a party favor, I said. That's not my problem. Her voice dropped into that guilt trip tone she's perfected. Family should be about sacrifice. You've always been so cold about these things. Kyle just wants a moment. You don't lose anything by letting him have it. I laughed once. Not lose anything? Mom, I lose the one day that's supposed to be about me and Sam. I lose respect. I lose patience. I lose $900 a month while I'm at it. Her voice spiked. There it is again. You keep throwing the money in our faces. You're weaponizing it. I leaned back. No, I'm stopping it. That's not a weapon. It's me refusing to keep paying for Kyle's lifestyle. She huffed. You'll regret this. When we lose the house, it'll be on your conscience. That was it for me. No, Mom. It'll be on Kyle's. You took out a second mortgage for him, not me. You kept bailing him out. You made your choice. I'm making mine. She hung up on me. Not long after, Grandma's name popped up. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was watery and weak. Ethan, I don't understand why you're being so cruel. Your brother is sensitive. He just wanted a chance to be happy. Why can't you let him? Because it's my wedding, Grandma, not his. You're young. You'll have other days. Kyle might not. That one stunned me. So I'm supposed to ruin mine because maybe he can't get his life together? That's insane. She kept going. You've always been difficult. Kyle was the good boy. You were stubborn, always questioning, always making trouble. I felt my jaw clench. Are you really rewriting history now? Kyle wrecked the car, not me. Kyle dropped out, not me. Kyle's 30 and still mooching, not me. And you're still sitting here calling him the good one? Her voice sharpened. Watch your tongue, Ethan. I've done nothing but love you. That was my breaking point. Love? You told Sam, before we were even engaged, that I was trouble, and she should keep her eyes open. Don't deny it. She told me everything. There was silence on the line, then she sputtered, That's not how I meant it. No, I cut her off. That's exactly how you meant it. And you know what? That was the last straw. You don't get to lecture me about family while you've spent my whole life undermining me and praising Kyle for breathing. She started crying again, louder this time, calling me ungrateful. I didn't wait for more. I hung up. Sam had been listening from the kitchen. She walked over, put her hand on my shoulder and said, Good. About time you stopped letting her run your life. I exhaled hard. I shouldn't have let her get under my skin. But I'm done. That's it. No more. Later that evening, Emily texted me. Mom's blowing up my phone too. Guess Kyle ran to her again. I called her back, and she answered with a sigh. You were right yesterday. They're relentless. But I don't blame you for losing it on Grandma. She's been feeding Kyle lies for years. I know, I said. Sam told me some of the crap Grandma said behind my back. That pushed me over. Emily's voice hardened. Then let her cry. She made her choice a long time ago. She doesn't get to demand your wedding on top of it. Thanks, I said. It's good to know I'm not crazy. You're not, she replied. Honestly, if they keep pushing, I'm out too. I'm done letting them use us. We hung up, and for the first time that week, I didn't feel completely outnumbered. The next day, Sam and I sat down with the venue coordinator. We gave them a printed rule sheet. No surprise announcements. No unplanned speeches. No exceptions. We also told them we'd hired security specifically to enforce it. Is that really necessary? The coordinator asked. Yes, Sam said firmly before I could. It's very necessary. That night, we sent the same rule sheet to immediate family. Emily texted back a thumbs up. Dad didn't reply. Mom's response was, We'll see. Grandma didn't even bother with words. She just sent a thumbs down emoji. I showed it to Sam and shook my head. This isn't over. She kissed my cheek and said, Then we'll be ready when they try again. The wedding day came faster than I thought it would. Sam and I had picked an outdoor venue with a small pond, simple decorations, and enough space for family without it feeling like a circus. Or at least, that was the hope. Guests started arriving around noon. People from Sam's side showed up on time, dressed sharp, smiling, polite. My side, well, let's just say Grandma wore a dress that looked like it belonged at a royal coronation, and Kyle showed up in a suit that was clearly borrowed and 2 sizes too big. Emily gave me a look as soon as she saw them. It said everything. Get ready. The ceremony itself went off without a hitch. I was nervous, but the second Sam walked down the aisle, I forgot about the background noise. For 20 minutes, it was perfect. The vows, the rings, the kiss. Everything landed the way it was supposed to. It wasn't until the reception started that the tension began to creep back in. The rule sheet was taped behind the bar, just in case. Marcus, my best man, started the speeches. He was funny without going overboard. Then Sam's maid of honor gave hers. Sweet and heartfelt. We were smiling, relaxed. That's when I saw Kyle stand up. He was at the far end of the room, Rachel beside him, looking pale. Grandma was whispering in his ear as he made his way toward the microphone. I stepped forward before he got there. Kyle, sit down. He ignored me. I just need a minute. Just 1 minute. And the coordinator tried to stop him, but Grandma waved her cane like she was Moses parting the Red Sea. Let him speak, she barked. Kyle grabbed the mic. Everyone, I have something important to say. The room went dead silent. All eyes turned to him. I could feel Sam tense beside me, so I cut him off. Loud enough for everyone to hear, I said, Quick PSA, folks. This isn't open mic night. If you didn't pay for the venue, the food, or the rings, sit down. A ripple of laughter ran through the crowd. Kyle's face turned red, but he held the mic tighter. No, listen. This is important. Rachel, I love you and... Rachel stood up so fast her chair screeched. Kyle, stop. He froze. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I told you I didn't want this. I told you not to make a scene, and you still did it. The guest started whispering. Kyle's eyes darted around like he could still salvage it. Babe, just let me finish. No, Rachel said, louder this time. I've told you for weeks I didn't want a public proposal, especially not at someone else's wedding. The answer is no. I'm done. The silence was heavier than the ceremony had been. People gasped. A couple of Sam's cousins actually clapped, and Grandma looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. Kyle's face crumpled. He turned toward me, like somehow this was my fault. You ruined this. I shook my head. No, Kyle. You ruined it when you tried to steal a wedding you weren't invited to headline. Don't blame me because she saw through you. More whispers, a few chuckles. Kyle's humiliation was spreading through the room like wildfire. He dropped the mic, the thud echoing through the speakers. He looked like he might swing at me, but before he could take a step, security moved in. Two guys in suits grabbed him gently but firmly by the arms. You can't do this, he yelled as they pulled him back. I'm family. Exactly, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And family should know better. That line got actual applause. Guests clapped, laughed, some even cheered. Sam squeezed my hand, grinning for the first time since Kyle stood up. Security escorted him out, and the coordinator calmly picked the mic off the floor. All right, folks, she said with a professional smile. Let's get back to celebrating Ethan and Sam. The crowd broke into cheers. The tension broke like a dam. But of course, Grandma wasn't done. She stood up, cane in hand, voice sharp as glass. You selfish little brat. You humiliated your brother. You're a disgrace. I turned toward her, smiled, and said, Security, please help my grandmother find her Uber. The laughter that followed was louder than the applause had been. Even people from my side who usually kept their mouths shut were shaking their heads and chuckling. Grandma sputtered, called me ungrateful, and stormed out after Kyle. The rest of the reception? Smooth. We danced, we ate. Marcus made fun of my dance moves, and Sam finally relaxed. Every time someone raised a glass, they toasted us. Not Kyle, not Grandma, us. At one point, Emily leaned over and whispered, That was the best shutdown I've ever seen. Worth every penny you spent on security. I laughed. I should have charged tickets. The night ended the way it should have. Sam and I surrounded by friends and the part of my family that actually cared. Kyle was gone, Grandma was fuming somewhere else, and for the first time in months, I felt like the day belonged to us again. Still, as Sam and I left the venue, I knew it wasn't the end. Not with my family. Mom hadn't made her move yet, and if there was one thing I'd learned growing up, it's that Mom never stays quiet for long. The morning after the wedding, my phone lit up before breakfast. Missed calls, voicemails, and a text from Mom about the mortgage. But by noon, Emily texted, Mom's going ballistic. You better call before she drives over to your house. I called back and kept it short. She launched straight into the same speech I'd heard for years. We're behind, the house is at risk, be generous. I told her, calmly this time, that my help ended when they tried to hand my wedding to Kyle, and that the only adult who lives in their house rent-free most months is the one who should start paying. She went icy and hung up. I barely had time to put my phone down before it buzzed again. This time it was a group text. Grandma had sent a long message to the entire family. I cannot believe what Ethan did to poor Kyle yesterday. He embarrassed him in front of Rachel and all those people. He's turned his back on his parents, who gave him everything. Shameful behavior. I don't understand why he is like this. Cousins started chiming in. A few sent the usual, sorry, Grandma responses, but then something unexpected happened. Two of my cousins replied, honestly, Kyle was out of line. Ethan and Sam deserve their day. Another wrote, Grandma, maybe this is between them. Let it go. That shut Grandma up for a few hours. Around dinner time, I got a text from Kyle. You embarrassed me. I'll never forgive you. I typed back, you embarrassed yourself. I warned you 100 times. Then I blocked his number. That night, Dad called me. First time in weeks he'd actually called me on his own. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Son, I wanted to say, you're right. I paused. Right about what? He sighed. About Kyle. About how we raised him. We should have pushed him harder. Should have made him pay rent years ago. Shouldn't have let your mother and Grandma protect him from everything. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him. I didn't know what to say, so I just told him, thanks. Meanwhile, Sam and I sat down that night with a spreadsheet. For the first time in years, we budgeted without factoring in that $900 drain. The money was going into savings, toward a down payment for our own house someday. Sam looked at me and said, "Feels good, doesn't it?" And it did. The next week, things got worse for Kyle. My parents, desperate to make the mortgage, told him he had to start contributing. Not just the $300 rent he tossed them when he felt like it, but real money. Utilities, food, the works. Kyle lost it. He told them it was unfair, that he needed time to get on his feet. Dad told him he'd had a decade. Mom told him if he didn't like it, he could leave. Emily filled me in over the phone. He's been sulking in his room for days. Won't talk to anyone except Grandma. He keeps saying you turned everyone against him. Good, I said. Maybe he'll finally realize the world doesn't revolve around him. Emily laughed bitterly. Don't hold your breath. A few days later, Grandma tried one more stunt. She organized a family dinner at her house, invited everyone and wrote, "We need to heal these wounds. Ethan owes Kyle an apology." Emily called me right away. "Don't even think about going." "Don't worry," I said. I wouldn't waste gas on that. Instead, I sent one message to the group chat. There will be no apology. Kyle tried to steal my wedding, and Grandma supported it. If you can't respect boundaries, don't expect me to show up. Silence. Not a single reply. The next morning, Mom sent me a short text. "You're destroying this family." I stared at it for a while before typing back, "No, Mom. Kyle and Grandma did that a long time ago. I'm just done pretending otherwise." 2 weeks after the wedding, I drove past my parents' house on my way to grab some things from Emily. The front yard looked different. For the first time in years, there was a room for rent sign stuck in the grass. Emily filled me in later. They finally did it. Dad listed the spare room. Mom's not happy, but they don't have a choice. "How's Kyle taking it?" I asked. She snorted. "Like a toddler. He keeps saying it's his house too, and he deserves the space. Dad told him flat out, 'It's our house. You either pay rent or leave.' That shocked me more than anything. Dad actually said it. Within 2 weeks, my parents had a tenant. A quiet college kid moved in, paying full rent and utilities. Kyle complained nonstop about privacy, about strangers in his home. Mom finally told him, 'That stranger is helping us pay the mortgage.' 'You're not.' Emily texted me a play-by-play of his meltdown. I can't lie. It was satisfying. Meanwhile, Grandma tried her last move. One Saturday, she showed up unannounced at my place. She knocked on the door for 5 minutes, then started yelling through the screen. "Ethan, open this door right now. You can't avoid me forever." Sam was in the living room. She looked at me and shook her head. I walked over, didn't open the door, and said loud enough for her to hear, "Grandma, you need to leave. You're not welcome here." And she yelled back, "You broke my heart. You abandoned your brother. You're a bad grandson." I didn't yell. I just said, "You chose Kyle. Live with it." Then I closed the blinds. She left a handwritten note in the mailbox, saying I'd regret this when she was gone. I threw it straight in the trash. That same night, Sam printed a wedding photo of us laughing on the dance floor. No Kyle, no Grandma in the background, just us. She framed it and hung it on the wall. "This is what matters," she said. And she was right. A few days later, Dad called again. His voice was quieter than usual. "I just wanted to say I'm proud of you, son. You did what I never could. You stood up to them." For once, I didn't feel the need to argue. I just said, "Thanks, Dad." Mom stayed distant. She sent the occasional cold text. Short lines like, "Hope you're happy," or "We're struggling because of you." I stopped replying. Emily, on the other hand, got bolder. She stopped going to Grandma's dinners, stopped answering Kyle's late-night rants, and told Mom directly, "I'm done with this favoritism. If you can't respect Ethan, you lose me too." That shook Mom more than anything I said. Suddenly, she wasn't just losing her difficult son, she was losing her daughter too. Kyle, meanwhile, kept spiraling. When the new tenant's rent covered part of the mortgage, Dad told him he had to chip in more for utilities. Kyle exploded again. "This isn't fair. You're ganging up on me. Ethan poisoned you against me. No one bought it. Not even Mom this time." Eventually, he started disappearing for days, crashing at Grandma's when she'd let him. But even she seemed tired of him. Emily told me one night, "Grandma's complaining that Kyle eats everything in her fridge and never helps with chores. Guess he's her problem now." For once, I didn't feel guilty. Not a bit. A week later, I sent one last group message to the family. "Sam and I are building our life. No more surprise announcements, no more guilt trips. If you want to be part of it, be normal. If not, that's fine too." Emily texted me privately right after, "Best thing you could have said." No one else replied. That weekend, Sam and I sat on the couch looking at that framed wedding photo. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You know, we might have lost some family, but we gained peace." I nodded. And that's worth more than $900 a month. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the backup wallet, the afterthought, the one told to be generous. I was just me, husband to Sam, brother to Emily, son to parents who were finally waking up. Kyle could sulk, grandma could stew, mom could stay mad. None of it mattered anymore, because I'd drawn my line, and for once, I wasn't stepping back. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. My dad cut me off for staying with my daughter in the ICU, instead of setting up my sister's engagement party, so I ended it with them too. Hey Reddit, my family treated me like their personal handyman and wallet for years. I finally said enough, focused on my daughter, and cut them off. Thought that was the end of it, but they had other plans. Before we get there, let me start from the beginning. I'm Nate Halpern. I'm 36, a high school physics teacher, and a single dad. My wife, Lila, passed away the day our daughter was born. Since then, it's been just me and Maya. She's 12 now. Smart, sarcastic, and obsessed with space. My family? Complicated. My parents, Gerald and Elaine, still think respect means doing whatever they say. My younger sister Clara has been their favorite since birth. I've spent most of my life being the responsible one. That morning, the hallway outside the ICU felt like another planet. Quiet, cold, full of machines humming behind closed doors. Nurses moved past like ghosts, calm but busy. I'd been there all night. Maya had been admitted with a severe asthma attack that turned into something worse. They said respiratory failure and critical condition, and my brain just stopped keeping time. After that, I sat against the wall, watching the monitor through the glass. The beeping was steady now. Earlier, it had been chaos. I whispered her breathing counts under my breath. Inhale, exhale, like keeping score might help her somehow. My coffee was cold. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That's when my phone buzzed again. Third time that morning. I didn't even need to check. It was my dad. I let it ring twice, then answered, "Yeah?" His voice came sharp, like he was already mid-argument. "Nate, I've been calling. You didn't answer." "I'm at the hospital," I said. "Maya's in the ICU." "I know," he said. "And I'm sorry, but we need to talk about Clara's engagement party. It's tomorrow. We're setting up today, and your mother can't lift everything herself. You were supposed to cover the catering." I thought maybe I'd misheard him. "Dad, she's on life support." "I'm aware," he said flat. "But family obligations don't just disappear. Clara's worked hard for this, and your mother's a wreck trying to get things ready." I stared at the floor tile, trying to process that someone could say those words out loud. "I can't leave," I said. "She's critical. I'm not leaving my kid to hang streamers." He sighed. That long, irritated sigh I'd known my whole life. You always have an excuse. Every time the family needs something, you vanish. You think you're better than everyone because you've got your little job and your tragic story. My voice stayed level. "You called me while my daughter's fighting to breathe. What did you think I'd say?" "You could have said yes," he snapped. "You could have shown up. You think you're the only one with problems?" I didn't answer right away. The silence stretched. I could hear someone down the hall crying softly, a monitor beeping faster, a nurse saying, "Clear." Everything in me was tired. "I'm not discussing this," I said finally. "If you can't show up for family," he said, his voice turning hard, "don't expect family to show up for you." "Do whatever you need to do," I told him. My tone surprised even me, calm, like the words weren't heavy at all. He paused, then said it, "Then you're cut off." I waited a second, mostly to see if he'd say anything human after that. He didn't. "Good," I said, and hung up. No yelling, no lecture, just done. For a few seconds I sat there, staring at my reflection in the phone screen, like someone had finally stopped a noise that had been playing for years. I opened my contacts, scrolled to his name, and hit block. Then I did the same for the house number A nurse walked by and smiled politely. I nodded back, slipped the phone into my pocket and stood. My legs felt stiff, but steady. Through the ICU window, Maya was small under all those wires. Her hair pulled back with a hospital clip, her face pale but peaceful. Machines breathed for her in slow rhythm, the sound steady and almost hypnotic. I went back in, took her hand, and sat down beside her. Her fingers were warm now. They'd been cold when we got here. The doctor had said she was stable, but every beep still felt like a held breath. I brushed her hair away from her forehead and whispered, "You're not alone, kiddo. I'm right here." She didn't move, but I kept talking anyway. About the stars she loved, the school project she'd been working on, the dumb sci-fi movie we hadn't finished. I talked until my voice steadied again. I leaned back in the chair, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, and felt the first clean breath I'd taken in years. When the adrenaline wore off, my mind started digging through old memories, like it was trying to make sense of how I ended up here, sitting in a hospital room, alone, with my father's voice still echoing in my head. I guess it started early. When I was 12, helping out in our house didn't mean chores or taking out trash. It meant doing the things my dad didn't want to. If the lawnmower broke, I fixed it. If the gutters overflowed, I climbed up there. If mom needed groceries, I biked across town and carried them home in my backpack. There was no asking. It was just expected. When I turned 16, I got my first job at a gas station. I thought I'd finally have my own money. 2 weeks later, Dad asked for half of my paycheck for bills. That half never stopped being half. By 18, I was paying the water bill because he forgot. At 20, I was fixing his truck on weekends and covering my sister's late rent because she just needed a few days. Clara was 7 years younger and the complete opposite of me. Where I was the one doing repairs, she was the one being rescued. If she crashed a car, Dad paid for the tow and blamed the road. If she failed a class, Mom said the teacher was too hard on her. If she cried, the whole house froze until she smiled again. When I confronted her once about her spending, she laughed, "You're just jealous that people like helping me." That line stuck for years. My mom had her own version of control, emotional guilt wrapped in kindness. Whenever I tried to say no, she'd say, "You're the only one we can count on." If I didn't help, she'd get quiet for days, banging pots around the kitchen or sighing loud enough for me to hear from my room. It was never yelling. It was disappointment. And somehow that hurt worse. So I learned early, saying yes kept the peace. Saying no made me the problem. When I married Lila, things shifted for a bit. She saw how my family operated and called it what it was. "They don't want help, Nate," she said once. "They want control." I didn't believe her back then. I thought being dependable was just who I was. Then Maya was born, and Lila never came home from the hospital that day. Everything changed again. At first, my parents acted like they wanted to support me. They moved in for a few weeks to help with the baby. It took about 3 days before the criticism started. My dad told me I was holding Maya wrong. My mom said I wasn't washing bottles right. Every suggestion came with a tone, like I was already failing. When I asked them to give me some space, they called me ungrateful. "We lost Lila too," my mom said. "You don't get to push us out." I let them stay longer than I should have, partly because I was scared, partly because I was exhausted. But the longer they stayed, the clearer it became. They weren't there for me or for Maya. They were there to feel needed. Eventually, I told them to leave. My dad took it as a betrayal. My mom cried for an hour and said, "You'll regret this when she's older." They didn't visit again for months, and when they did, it was like an inspection. Every time they came by, they'd look around the apartment like they were grading it. "You still haven't fixed that faucet?" Or "Maya's too thin." They called it concern. I called it control with manners. When Maya started school, they'd offer help. Rides, money for supplies, babysitting. Every single time, it came with strings. If I took the money, I'd hear about it for months. If I said no, I was too proud. After a while, I just stopped answering when they called. It didn't stop them from showing up anyway. Now, sitting by Maya's bed, I saw it all clearly. Every time they said family, what they meant was obligation. Every time they said help, they meant hold still while we take over. And I let it happen for years, because I thought that's what good sons do. The nurse walked in and adjusted one of the monitors. Maya's numbers looked better. Small progress, but progress. I thanked the nurse, and when she left, I sat back and looked at my daughter's face. Even with the tubes and wires, she looked calm, stronger than I felt most days. I realized something right then. My parents never taught me what love looked like. They taught me what usefulness looked like. Love to them was measured in favors, in obedience, in how much I could give before breaking. But Maya wasn't going to learn that. Not from me. I reached over, touched her hand gently and said, "You're not here to fix anyone, kiddo. You're just here to live." Her fingers twitched. Small, almost nothing. But enough I leaned back in the chair and let the thought settle. I wasn't raised to be loved. I was raised to serve. But that ends here. Around noon next morning, I checked my phone for the first time since the argument with my father. 32 missed messages lit up the screen. All from the family group chat. Halpern family, with a sunflower emoji Clara had added years ago. I opened it. Mom had sent a long list of items for Clara's engagement party. Tablecloths, candles. Remember to bring the folding chairs from your garage. Clara replied with photos of decorations, asking which color balloons matched better with her theme. Someone else dropped a playlist link, and Dad had written, "We'll need the truck by 3. Nate, don't be late." I scrolled through it twice, reading the comments like they belonged to strangers. Not one of them had asked about Maya. Not one message even mentioned her name. I typed slowly, "Maya is in ICU. I'm not coming. Don't ask me for money. Don't contact me unless it's about her." I stared at it for a few seconds before hitting send. The 3 dots popped up instantly. Mom replied first, "Your grandmother would be heartbroken if she saw how cold you've become." Then Clara, "Seriously, you're ruining my weekend. This is supposed to be my happy time." Dad came next. "Grow up and stop making everything about you." The dots blinked again. Another cousin chimed in with, "Wow, family is family, man." Another aunt wrote, "You can't stay mad forever." The flood kept coming. Paragraphs, guilt, old stories twisted into proof that I was selfish. I didn't reply. I turned the phone face down on the table and sat back. The screen kept lighting up, buzzing over and over, like it refused to accept silence. When it finally stopped, I muted the group for a year. For the first time, there was nothing I needed to explain. After that, I went into my email and started cutting off every old tie I could think of. Joint account with my parents from years ago. Closed autopay connections on cards Clara used for emergencies. Canceled. Passwords changed, every one of them. Each click felt cleaner. While I worked through it, a nurse came in to check Maya's vitals. "She's improving," she said. "Her oxygen levels are steady." I nodded and thanked her. The nurse smiled and left. I looked at Maya's hand resting on the blanket. Her fingers twitched every now and then, small movements that reminded me she was still fighting. I whispered, "We're okay, kiddo. They can throw their party. We're staying right here." I leaned back and thought about how my whole life had been noise. Constant calls, demands, guilt, people pretending it was love while draining every ounce of peace I had. The noise had filled every space until I didn't even realize how tired I was. Now that it was gone, it felt strange, like walking out of a crowded room into open air, light but unfamiliar. I checked the window. It was starting to snow outside, soft flakes sticking to the glass. I remembered when Maya was 6, catching snowflakes on her gloves and saying, "Each one is different, Dad, like fingerprints but colder." That memory hit hard. She had always been observant, sharp in ways most adults missed. I reached for her tablet from the nightstand and queued up one of her favorite space documentaries, letting the narrator's calm voice fill the room. "In the silence of space," it began, "everything moves, but nothing makes a sound." I let that line sit. My phone buzzed again. A text from Clara, outside the group chat this time. "You're being dramatic. Mom's crying now. You could have just said you're busy." I didn't even open it fully. I just blocked her number, same as my dad's. Blocking them didn't touch the family group chat, but it kept my phone quiet. They could spin whatever story they wanted for once. I didn't care how they told it. I turned my focus back to Maya. The steady rhythm of her breathing matched the slow pulse on the monitor. The lines moved across the screen like quiet proof of life. For years, I'd been trained to measure my worth by how much I could give. Money, time, patience, silence. All of it traded for the illusion of peace. Now I was sitting here in a hospital chair, broken all the usual ways, but finally free in one. The next afternoon, Maya was stable enough that I could finally breathe without counting the seconds between her heart monitor beeps. The doctor said she was responding well. For the first time in days, I let myself believe she might be okay. I just stepped out to grab a cup of coffee from the vending machine when I saw my father walking down the hall. He wasn't supposed to be there. His shoulders were squared, that same heavy stride that used to fill every doorway when I was a kid. My mother followed a few steps behind, clutching her purse like it might help her case. He didn't even look around for a nurse or check-in counter. He walked straight toward me. "Nate," he said, loud enough for half the hallway to hear, "we need to talk." I didn't move. "You shouldn't be here." It was the day before Clara's party. He'd come to force the issue. He stopped a few feet away, eyes locked on mine. "You blocked my number. That's childish. You think cutting everyone off makes you a good father?" I glanced at the nurse station. 2 of them were pretending not to look. "This isn't the place," I said. "Maya's resting." "This is exactly the place," he shot back. "You embarrassed your family in that group chat. You humiliated your mother, your sister." "I told the truth," I said. "That's not humiliation. That's clarity." He stepped closer. "You're talking like a stranger." Since when do you act like you're too good for us? I kept my tone even, since you made me choose between my daughter and your party. His jaw tightened. Don't twist my words. You've always been dramatic. One little request. One little request? I cut him off. She's 12. She was hooked up to a ventilator, and you called to ask about decorations. He waved a hand like it was nothing. You make it sound worse than it is. Your sister's engagement. Stop, I said. He didn't. You think you're some kind of martyr because you're raising a kid alone? You've let that define you for too long. Everyone loses people, Nate. The hallway went quieter. I felt my pulse spike. Don't talk about her, I said. He folded his arms. Lila isn't here anymore, and hiding behind her memory doesn't make you righteous. That was it. The line. The one he didn't get to cross. I stepped closer until we were eye to eye. My voice dropped low. You don't speak her name again? Not here? Not ever? For a second, he didn't react. Then I saw it. The quick flash of something like uncertainty. He tried to recover with a scoff. You threatening me now? No, I said. I'm setting a boundary. You're leaving. Now. He glanced past me toward Maya's room. You're really going to throw me out? In front of everyone? Yes. He stared at me, searching for the part of me that used to fold. When he didn't find it, he tried a softer angle. You've changed, he said. Your mother's been sick about this. Mom stepped forward, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. We just wanted to see her, Nate. You can't keep us away forever. She's our granddaughter. She's my daughter, I said. And she's not a prop for family forgiveness. Mom's expression cracked for a second, then reset into disappointment. You don't mean that. I mean every word. Dad's tone shifted again, from guilt to command. If you walk away from your family, don't expect us back when you need help. I gave him a look I'd practiced in silence for years. I've never needed your help. You needed mine. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Behind him, a nurse started walking toward us. Probably to diffuse whatever she thought was happening, I held up a hand to let her know it was fine. My father saw the gesture and straightened his coat. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said, but not today. I turned toward my mother. Go home, Mom. She's still recovering. This isn't good for her. She hesitated. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this. Dad muttered something under his breath, then turned and walked away. Mom followed, glancing back once before catching up to him. When they were gone, the nurse came over. You okay? I'm fine, I said. Sorry about that. She nodded. Happens more than you think. I waited until they disappeared down the hall before walking back into Maya's room. I sat down beside her and took her hand. Her fingers curled slightly around mine, instinct more than anything. For years, I'd mistaken submission for peace, thinking staying quiet kept things from breaking, but it only made the cracks deeper. Now, with them gone, I didn't feel relief exactly. It was something else, a stillness that didn't ask for permission. I looked at her sleeping face and said quietly, I didn't win, kiddo. I just stopped losing. By the end of the week, Maya was breathing on her own again. No tubes, no oxygen mask, just her, sleeping under a thin hospital blanket, her chest rising steady and slow. The doctor said she'd probably be discharged in a few days if she kept improving. That was the only thing that mattered. I'd been living on vending machine coffee and 4 hours of sleep a night, but I didn't care. Every good report felt like a win. The first sign of fallout came 2 mornings later. A coworker texted me a screenshot from Facebook. My dad had posted some long paragraph about being betrayed by your own blood and losing trust in someone who was supposed to lead the family. My name wasn't in it, but it didn't need to be. Half the comments were people writing, Stay strong, Gerald. Mom added her own post that afternoon. A photo of her and Clara hugging at the engagement party setup with a caption about leaning on those who still believe in family. Then Clara made her move. On her Instagram story, she posted, Some people forget who fed them when they were hungry. But that's okay. God sees everything. I didn't even have to scroll to know they were all talking about me. I set the phone down, stared out the window at the parking lot below, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a kind of distance. Like watching strangers reenact something I used to be part of. That evening, I got the first email alert. A declined transaction on an old credit card, one that was supposed to be inactive. Then another. $230 at a party supply store. Then $600 from a catering service. Those vendors still had my old number saved in their profiles, so they tried to run it. I called the bank right away. The woman on the line pulled up my account. It looks like someone tried to use your previous card, she said. Do you recognize the merchant? Yeah, I said. Unfortunately, I do. She asked if I wanted to press charges. I told her no. Just shut everything down. We went through my recent activity and flagged every recurring charge. The rep read out the merchants. I wrote them down. The bank shut the card and blocked new charges. After we hung up, I called each company myself, removed my name from the utility account, closed the gas card autopay, and canceled the Costco auto renew. Each click felt cleaner. When the call ended, the rep said, "All secure now, Mr. Halpern. You're good to go." For a second, that sentence felt bigger than she probably meant it to. The next day, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You didn't have to go nuclear. You're embarrassing us." I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another one. "Dad said you locked the family out of accounts. He's furious." I blocked the number. By Friday, the rumors had started making their way through extended family. My aunt sent a message saying, "Your parents told us you drained their savings." I told her that was impossible, considering I never had access to their savings. She replied, "I don't want to be in the middle of this." That was fine by me. I stopped checking social media after that. Every time I opened an app, there was some half-truth being shared like it was gospel. They were painting me as cold, ungrateful, selfish. I'd spent most of my life trying to avoid being called those things now. Hearing them didn't even sting. At night, when Maya slept, I sat in the chair by her bed and wrote down every account, every login, every payment detail I needed to fix. It was boring work, but it gave me focus. Something solid. I canceled the family phone plan that was still in my name. I called the utility company and removed myself from the house account I hadn't lived in for over a decade. I changed my email passwords, my recovery numbers, even my Amazon login. One by one, I closed every door they used to walk through without knocking. The nurse who'd been on shift all week stopped by with fresh linens. "She's lucky to have a dad like you," she said, nodding toward Maya. I smiled. I think I'm the lucky one. When she left, I sat back down, stretched my legs, and let my head rest against the chair. For the first time, there was no buzzing phone, no guilt sitting on my chest. Maya stirred, half awake. "Dad," she whispered. "I'm here," I said. Her eyes opened a little. "Are we going home soon?" "Yeah," I told her. "Soon." She smiled weakly. "Can we get pancakes first?" I laughed softly so I wouldn't set off the monitor. "Yeah, kiddo, pancakes first." She drifted back to sleep. I watched her for a long time, the steady rise and fall of her breathing. Every sound in that room was predictable. The monitor beep, the air vent, the faint hum of fluorescent lights. After months of noise from people who never listened, this kind of predictability felt like peace. My family could say whatever they wanted. They could twist every story until it looked like I was the villain. But the truth was simple. I wasn't reacting anymore. I looked at Maya, safe and still, and realized silence wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. A week later, the doctors signed the discharge papers, and Maya came home. The apartment felt unfamiliar, like we were moving back into our own lives after being gone too long. The air smelled different. Real air, not the sterile kind that hummed through hospital vents. She walked in slowly, still a little pale, a fingertip pulse oximeter clipped to her finger. "Home," she said quietly. Then louder. "Home." I smiled. "Yeah, finally." We unpacked her things first. The stack of get well cards from her classmates, her stuffed astronaut, the blanket one of the nurses gave her. I cleaned while she rested on the couch, then made soup, the kind she liked with tiny alphabet noodles. That first night, she insisted on sleeping in her own bed. I checked her pulse oximeter more than I needed to, but she didn't mind. "You're like a security system," she said, half asleep. "Yeah," I said, "one that doesn't turn off." The next morning, sunlight came through the blinds, and for the first time, it didn't feel like another day to survive. It just felt like a day. We fell into a routine again. Simple stuff. Breakfast, meds, a slow walk outside, homework spread across the table. She drew planets on her math worksheets. I let her. On Wednesday, I went back to work for a few hours. My students surprised me. A welcome back note taped to the whiteboard. Jokes written in the corners. The principal told me to take it slow. I told him I planned to. That afternoon, Maya and I made pancakes again, this time shaped like stars. She laughed when one fell apart. "It's a supernova," she said. She was right. The calm didn't last long before someone tried to interrupt it. Friday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it buzzed again. This time, I answered. "Mr. Halpern," a familiar voice said. "This is Pastor Tom." Of course it was. "Your parents asked me to check in. They're worried about you and Maya." I kept my tone polite. "We're fine, Pastor. Thanks for calling." He hesitated. They didn't mean to upset you, Nate. Family can get... I know what family can get, I said. I appreciate your concern, but we're good. Would you like me to tell them that? Please do. I hung up before he could say more. For the rest of the day, my phone stayed silent. It felt like progress. That evening, Maya and I sat on the couch watching a nature documentary. Halfway through, she leaned her head on my shoulder. The next interruption came 2 days later. A text from Clara, from a different number, Ryan's phone. Hey, I know things are weird. Ryan and I could use some help this month. Rent's tight, just till we get on track. I read it twice. Then I typed back, I'm not your bank. I'm your brother. There's a difference. She saw it instantly. You don't have to be mean, she replied. Not being mean, I wrote, just done. When she fired back, I blocked Ryan's number too. I set the phone face down and didn't touch it again. After that, the quiet settled in like furniture that finally belonged in the room. Maya started sketching again. Rockets, comets, even a few robots. We went on short walks after dinner, her hand in mine, the air cool but not cold. She talked about her science fair project like it was a classified mission. I listened to every word. One night, while she was drawing at the table, I opened my laptop to an email from the school district. They needed someone to lead the regional physics competition team this year. I almost said no out of habit, then changed my mind. I replied yes. When I told Maya, her eyes lit up. You're gonna win, she said. I laughed. It's not about winning. Everything's about winning, she said. Even peace. She went back to drawing like she hadn't just said something smarter than most adults I know. The following week was uneventful in the best possible way. Work, cooking, homework, sleep. No unexpected phone calls, no guilt trips, no accounts mysteriously reopened. Just normal. I fixed the wobbly kitchen chair I'd been ignoring for months. I replaced the light bulb in the hallway. Maya teased me for finally doing chores. You're on a roll, she said. Don't jinx it, I told her. Sunday night, we made tacos and watched a movie halfway through. She fell asleep against my arm, her breathing steady and soft. I muted the TV and just sat there. It hit me then. This was what peace actually looked like. Not some grand moment or perfect ending. Just small things that didn't hurt. 3 weeks passed without a single text, call, or rumor. The quiet stayed steady, and I got used to it. Maya was back in school, healthy, full of jokes again. The apartment finally felt like ours. No ghosts, no noise, just life. It was a Saturday morning when the knock came. 3 short taps, then silence. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Gerald and Elaine were standing there. My dad in a pressed flannel like he was trying to look casual. My mom clutching a small box wrapped in silver paper. They both looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but in presence. Before I could say anything, Maya came running from the living room. Grandma! Grandpa! Her voice was so bright it knocked the air out of me. She hugged them both before I could react. My first instinct was to tell them to leave, to protect the peace I'd built. But seeing her face, that kind of pure excitement, I couldn't do it. I stepped aside. 5 minutes, I said. She just got over being sick. Dad nodded. That's fair. They walked in slowly, like they were afraid to break something. She motioned for them to sit, but Dad stayed standing. Mom handed her the box. This is for you, she said softly. Maya tore the paper open, and her eyes widened. It's the telescope, the one from the catalog. She turned it around in her hands like it was a treasure. Dad, look! I looked. It was the same model she'd shown me online months ago, the one I told her we'd save up for after the hospital bills. She hugged both of them again before running to her room to find a spot for it. The silence that followed was heavy, but not hostile. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't come to fight. Good, I said. He nodded once, slow. I've had time to think. I pushed too hard. I thought keeping control meant keeping the family together. Mom added, we only wanted to help, but we made it worse. I miss her. I miss Maya. I crossed my arms. You could have just said that instead of sending Pastor Tom or trying to ruin me online. Dad winced. You're right. No excuses. No attempt to justify it. That was new. I sat across from them. I'll say this once, but there are rules. Mom nodded. Whatever you need. No manipulation, I said. No guilt trips. No bringing up money. And you don't show up uninvited again. Text first and wait for me to say yes. And wait for... Dad looked at me for a long time, then said, understood. Maya came back out, hugging the telescope box. Can we set it up tonight? We can, I said. If the sky's clear. Mom smiled at her, cautious but warm. We'd like to see that too, if it's okay. I looked at Maya, not them. She was grinning, and that was my answer. We'll see, I said. After they left, the apartment felt quiet again, but this time it didn't feel invaded. Just adjusted. Like a window had opened for a minute and then closed again. That afternoon, I was cleaning up dishes when there was another knock. 2 knocks, then one more. A different rhythm. When I opened the door, Clara was there. Ryan stood a step behind her, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Clara looked nervous. Her makeup was minimal, her voice lower than usual. "Can we talk?" I leaned on the doorframe. "Depends what about." She swallowed. "Everything. Mostly me." Maya peeked from the hallway. "Aunt Clara?" Clara smiled a little. "Hey, kiddo." I stepped aside, motioned them in. "Make it quick." Clara stood near the counter, twisting a ring on her finger. "I was selfish," she said. "I made everything about me, even when you were just trying to protect Maya. I said things online I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." Ryan nodded. She's been wanting to say that for a while. Clara continued. "I know sorry doesn't fix what we did, but I don't want Maya growing up thinking we hated each other." Maya stepped forward. "I don't think that. I just didn't like when everyone was mean to Dad." That one sentence hit harder than anything else could have. Clara looked at her, eyes glassy. "You're right," she said. "We were mean. You didn't deserve that." Maya nodded once and handed her a piece of paper she'd been holding. One of her drawings, a cartoon rocket labeled, "Family Trying Again." Clara smiled and wiped her eyes. "Thanks." I looked at her and said, "Let's be clear. If you want to be part of our lives, you have to understand that I'm not your backup plan anymore. No loans, no bailouts, no guilt." "I get it," she said quickly. "I don't want money. I just want us to be okay again." "Okay takes time," I said. She nodded. "Then I'll wait." After they left, Maya was practically bouncing. "Everyone's saying sorry," she said. "That means we can have family dinners again, right?" I smiled faintly. "Maybe. Small ones." Then I texted both my parents and Clara. "Sky's clear. If you want to see Jupiter, come by at 8 short visit." That evening, the sky was clear enough for stars. We set up the telescope on the balcony. I let Maya handle most of it. She was careful and confident, tightening the screws, adjusting the lens. At 8, right on time, headlights slid into the parking lot. My parents' car. Then another. Clara and Ryan. I thought about sending them away, but Maya was already waving them over. "Come see Jupiter," she called out. They stepped out onto the balcony and joined us quietly. No drama, no tension. Clara helped Maya line up the focus. Dad stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, just watching. Her mom brought a thermos of hot chocolate, handing out cups without saying much. For a while, nobody talked. The night was calm. Maya pointed to the telescope. "See that tiny dot next to Jupiter? That's one of its moons. Dad says it's called Io." Clara leaned over. "It's beautiful." Maya grinned. "It's fiery. I like it because it doesn't stay still." Dad laughed quietly. "Sounds like someone I know?" I looked at him. He wasn't smiling at me, just watching his granddaughter, eyes softer than I'd seen in years. The peace that night didn't feel perfect. It felt cautious, temporary, but real. When everyone left, I tucked Maya into bed. She was still talking about the telescope, about how she could see the stars better than ever. I stood by her door for a minute, listening to her hum before falling asleep. Forgiving them didn't mean trusting them. It meant showing Maya that love with boundaries still counts as love. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. My wife and I have been together for 29 years, married for 26 of those. I'm a 51-year-old man. She's a 49-year-old woman. And we have 2 grown kids, a 24-year-old son and a 22-year-old daughter. We met in college, dated, fell in love, got married, and built what I believed was a wonderful marriage. We did a lot of things together, communicated constantly, and tackled any issues that arose. We both had successful careers that we supported each other in. Our love life was great. Maybe not as frequent as when we were younger, but just as passionate. She's in IT, and I own a small landscaping company that employs 75 people, which I started after graduation. She's been working from home a lot since COVID, and we've been discussing me stepping back from the day-to-day operations and her going part-time so we can spend more time together and travel, especially now that the kids are established. Looking back, there were none of the red flags I've read so much about. No strange texting habits, no guarding her phone, no changes in her wardrobe, no unusual behavior, no nights out with colleagues from work. She'd go out usually with friends or family. The next day, someone would always tell me I should have joined. But I liked her having her own time, and I enjoyed my solitude in my workshop. She was always home early, so to say I was caught off guard is putting it mildly. D-Day, the previous week. I'd planned a surprise weekend at a friend's romantic B&B for our anniversary. It was the winter festival weekend. I left work early to surprise her, telling her to pack for a trip. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted an unknown car. Immediately, I had a gut feeling. I didn't know why, but I did. I sat there hoping I was wrong, but my gut said otherwise. I sat there contemplating my next move. Should I leave and confront her later? Pretend I didn't see anything? I was shaking so much I could barely see. When I face uncomfortable tasks at work, I tell myself to man up and get it over with. Suddenly, my shaking stopped, and I felt oddly calm. I had no idea how because inside I was a wreck. I quietly entered through the back door, and my black lab was lying there looking sad, as if he knew something was off, instead of his usual excited greeting. Gosh, I adore that dog. He stays put as I tiptoe up the stairs as I reach the top. The sounds from our bedroom become clear. I approach the door, swing it open, and there he is, her boss on top of my wife. I pause for a moment before shouting, "Surprise!" The ensuing chaos would be comical if it weren't so heart-wrenching. He rolls off, attempting to escape the bed, but ends up entangled in the sheets. My wife is repeatedly shrieking, "Oh my God!" while trying to cover herself. But she can't, because he's still tangled up. Eventually, he frees himself and starts searching for his clothes, which are on the other side of the bed. It strikes me that they're in the same spot where mine usually land. For some reason, I beat him to them and snatch them up. My wife is sobbing, repeating, "I'm so sorry." I back up to the door and stand there while he's standing next to the bed, naked. I grab the large armchair from the corner, drag it to the door, and sit down. He asks for his clothes, but I refuse and toss him my wife's robe hanging on the door. He starts to approach me now, even at 51. I'm in good shape at 6 feet, 3 inches pound 240. Years of gym workouts and landscaping work have kept me fit. I gaze at him and warn, if you come any closer, it won't end well for either of us. You'll end up in the hospital and I'll land in jail. So how about you just take a seat? My wife is now weeping into the pillow and he sits down. After an awkward silence, he asks, "What's next?" I respond, "I honestly don't know." My wife's crying has subsided a bit and she sits up. Eventually, I pull out my phone and declare, "You're both going to spill everything while I record it." They exchange glances and my wife queries, "What do you mean by everything?" I retort, "Exactly that. Everything. How it began, how long it's been going on, when, where, hotel stays, dinners, the works, everything. My wife insists this was the only time, to which I shout bullcrap. There's no way you'd be comfortable enough to bring him into our bed if this wasn't a long-standing affair. If you lie to me again, I'm walking out that door and seeking a divorce attorney." She breaks down, crying again. So for the next 10 to 15 minutes, the truth pours out. It's been happening for over 9 months. It began with him flirting with her and so on, until he invited her to lunch, and she accepted. A few drinks later, they were in a hotel. She came home to me that night as if nothing had happened. She insists that it was tearing her apart, and she wanted to confess but didn't know how. Once more, I cry foul. If it was tearing you apart, you wouldn't have continued it so effortlessly. They even attended a week-long work conference that I used to accompany her to. She informed me that company policy had changed and spouses were no longer allowed. I pocket my phone, and the room falls silent again. Then an idea strikes me. I rummage through his clothes for his phone and request his passcode. Surprisingly, he provides it. So I start browsing through his phone. I discover some photos of a woman I presume is his wife and inquire about her name, Carol. She's quite attractive, though not as stunning as my Ashley. I inform him as I find more pictures of children. Turns out he has 3. And finally, a family portrait of all of them. I hold up the phone and remark, "A lovely family. Why would you risk it all for a fling with my wife?" His response, "What do you mean, risk it all? Me? You genuinely believe Carol won't find out? Him? How would she find out? Me? I'm about to call her right this moment." He stands up and protests. "No, you can't!" My wife shrieks. "Please don't do this to him," I snap. "Don't do this to him. You've shattered me, our family, our friends, our future, and my heart, and you're concerned about his well-being." I'm trembling again, trying to hide my tears, but I can't keep it together any longer. I slumped back into the chair and start weeping. She attempts to approach me, but I glare at her in command. "Keep your distance." After a bit, I regain my composure and glance at his phone again. He pleads once more. "Please, I'm begging you. I promise I'll tell her." "Sure you will," I retort. He stands there, begging me not to, as I locate her number and decide if FaceTime call would be even more impactful. She picks up and, looking puzzled, asks, "Who are you? Is my husband all right?" He's fine for now, but that's about to change. I switch the camera to show him standing there in my wife's robe. I state I believe you're familiar with this man. The room he's in is my bedroom. The floral robe he's sporting belongs to this woman. As I swivel the phone to capture my wife who's attempting to hide under the sheets. But it's too late. That's my wife, and I arrived home early today to find them in bed together. I genuinely feel sorry for her, and terrible about how I broke the news. She begins to sob and he tries the honey. I'm so sorry. I can explain. It was just one-time spiel. I advise her not to trust a single word he says. It's been happening for over 9 months, and I've spent the last 15 minutes recording all the details they were willing to divulge. I assure her I'll text her my contact info, and she should send me her email address, so I can forward her the video. I hand him his phone and overhear her warning him that a packed bag will be waiting outside when he gets home. And if he tries to enter the house, she'll call the cops before she hangs up. I throw his clothes at him, and he exits once he's dressed. Now it's just me and my wife left. She gazes at me and starts shedding tears, apologizing profusely. She never intended to cause me pain. Could I find it in my heart to forgive her? It was meaningless. All the typical cheater's excuses. I stare at her instructor to pack her things and get out of my house. I head downstairs and pour myself a drink. I'm sitting on the sofa when she descends the stairs. She begins to approach me and I command. Just stop, she inquires. If we can discuss this, and I respond. Perhaps, just perhaps, but not now, I inform her. It's going to be incredibly difficult to resist seeking a divorce attorney, and she starts weeping again. She looks at me and I can tell. And I love you, is on the tip of her tongue. I interject. Don't you dare utter those words right now because I don't think I'll ever trust them again. More tears flow as she turns and exits the door. Seeing her in tears, walking out the door, my entire world leaving, I crumble and collapse on the floor, shaking, crying uncontrollably. I can't tell how much time passed, but eventually I manage to sit up, still shedding tears, and I dial my best friend. I attempt to speak, but the tears start flowing again, and I can't get the words out. He asks, "What's wrong?" But I can't respond. He asks if I'm at home, and I manage to grant a yes, and he assures me he's on his way. Half an hour later, he's in my living room. I'm still in tears. I hand him my phone with the video on display, and he starts to watch. I can't stand to hear it, and go to fix us both a drink. He enters the kitchen, takes my drink away, and pours them both down the sink, saying, "This isn't going to help you." He insists, "I can't stay here alone tonight," and instructs me to go upstairs and pack a bag. I come back downstairs, and he has my lab on a leash, and we head to his place. Update. For those of you who commented on how wonderful my friend is, his name is Dan, and I couldn't agree more. Given our long-standing friendship, it's only natural that our families would be close. Our children are friends, and when they were younger, we used to go on family camping trips together. Over the years, his wife, Terry, and mine have become close friends, which is relevant to what happened next. As we were driving to his house, I was silent and Dan was growing increasingly angry when we arrived at his place. He walked in and asked Terry, "Did you know?" She responded with a confused no. "What?" He raised his voice and asked again, "Did you know?" I intervened, telling him to calm down and reminding him that this wasn't her fault. He realized he was out of line and apologized to Terry with a hug, now utterly bewildered. Terry was handed my phone by Dan, who said, "Show her." I took my dog outside, not wanting to hear it again. When it was over, Terry came outside in tears and gave me a long, comforting hug. She took my hand and we went back inside. The three of us spent the next hour or so talking and crying and talking. All the while, my phone was buzzing nonstop. As you might have guessed, it was my wife. I disregard the calls and trace the texts without even glancing at them. Then my son rings up. He's curious about what's happening. His mom is at his place with his wife, claiming I kicked her out. I ask him, "Did she tell you why?" He responds, "No." I tell him I handed the phone. She needs to explain. He asks why, and I tell him I'll send him the video if she doesn't. And then I hang up. About 10 minutes later, my son calls back, sobbing. All he can stutter out is a series of WTF. I switch from being upset to being a comforting dad, reassuring him that it's going to be all right and that none of this is his fault. He calms down and checks if I'm okay, to which I respond with a tearful, "Of course not." He finally tells me that his mom will be staying the night and quickly ends the call. My phone rings again. This time it's my daughter. I had forgotten that. I asked her to look after the dog while we were supposed to be away for the weekend. She's wondering where Cooper, my lab, is. I tell her plans have changed and we're not going. But she can still stay at the house. Neither of us will be home tonight, she asks. What do you mean, neither of you? Where are you? I tell her. I'm at Dan and Terry's. And your mom is at your brother's? She insists. Dad, Tell me what's going on, I respond. I can't right now. I'll swing by the house tomorrow and we can talk then. She keeps pushing, but I keep refusing. Eventually, she gives up and ends the call. I know exactly where the next call is going to be. Then I ping my son, giving him a heads up about an imminent call. Next, I dial my wife, asking her if she's ready to spill the beans to our daughter or if the task falls on me. Her response is nothing but a fresh wave of tears. I disconnect the call after a half hour. There's a knock at the door. Dan lets my daughter in, seeing me in tears. She rushes to me and we both break down in a tight embrace. She's unaware of the reason behind our emotional outburst when we manage to regain some composure. I call my wife again, letting her know that our daughter is with me. And once again, I ask if she's ready to break the news. Or should I put her on speaker? My daughter chimes in, asking her mom to clarify what she's supposed to reveal, but all she hears is more crying. So I decide to step up, ending the call without revealing any details. I then drop the bombshell. I found out today that her mother has been having an affair for the past 9 months. Just when I thought my pain couldn't intensify, the look of hurt on my little girl's face brings me to my knees. She's shaking, too shocked to even cry. I'm on the floor, a sobbing wreck, immobilized. I feel like I've let her down when she needed me the most. I couldn't even muster the strength to move. Terry, with tears in her eyes, rushes over to comfort her, promising her that things will eventually be okay. Dan is also shedding tears, like I mentioned. Our families are tight-knit. She finally releases this heart-wrenching cry that I know will haunt me forever, even if I live to be a century old. I finally gather myself and go to embrace them both. We all eventually find our way to the couch, lost for words. I ask my daughter if she's going to be all right. She looks at me and says, "Dad, don't fret about me. Are you going to pull through?" I manage to croak out. "I'll cope." She asks if she can take Cooper with her to the house and if her fiancé Tim can come stay there. Naturally, I agree. I'm relieved she won't be alone after she leaves. Terry is livid, saying, "I can't believe she did this," and proceeds to call her every name under the sun. She calms down and grabs her phone, saying she's going to call her, looking at me, expecting me to object. I tell her, "Go ahead, but put it on speaker." So she calls, exchanging small talk and so on. Finally, she tells her that Mike, that's me, called Dan in tears after she left the house. And now I'm staying there. Terry knows everything again. More crying. Terry just lets loose, yelling at her. "What were you thinking? How could you? Why didn't you come talk to me before you started down this path? If something was lacking, why didn't you talk to Mike? You know how understanding he is. Do you have any idea how many people you've hurt?" Darlene, our daughter, just left here. I can't even begin to describe the look on her face when Mike told her, "Dan and I will never be able to see you in the same light again. How could you be so damn self-centered?" Just more sobbing on the other end, repeating how remorseful she is. Terry doesn't end the call, just listens to her weep after a moment or so. I ask Terry to hand me the phone. "Ashley." No answer. I call her name again. "Ashley." She finally responds. "Yes, babe," I retort. "You've lost the right to call me that." More sobbing from her end. "I just want to know, what are you truly sorry for? If I hadn't come home early, would you have realized the gravity of your actions? Or would you have slept with your boss once we returned from our trip?" More crying. "You're not really sorry for all the people you've hurt, including your boss's family. You're just sorry you got caught." I end the call. Dan, Terry, and I chat a bit more while my phone continues to buzz incessantly. I finally attempt to sleep, but to no avail. And this morning, I ask Dan to drive me home, give Terry a hug, and express how much they both mean to me. I tell Dan I plan to head to my cabin for some solitude. He agrees that it's a wise move. As we're driving, I notice that amidst the flurry of notifications on my phone, there's one message from my wife's boss's wife expressing her gratitude for the revelation and providing her email address. I forward the video and offer her the chance to reach out if she needs to unload. It might be beneficial for both of us. I pack up quietly, careful not to disturb Darlene and Tim as I'm loading up the truck. I pick up a couple of my .22 rifles. Dan questions my actions, and I explain. I usually do some target practice up there. Not this time. He counters, confiscating them. Cooper hops in and off we go. Upon arrival, about 2.5 hours later, I get the place opened up and start a fire in the fireplace. Cooper and I take a stroll in the woods. It's somewhat soothing, but not entirely. My son rings to check up on me, and I inform him of my whereabouts. I tell him if his mother wants to stay at the house, that's fine, but she needs to clear out before I return. He agrees after our walk. Cooper dozes off by the fireplace, and I head out to chop some firewood. It's a great workout, and surprisingly therapeutic with each X-Wing. I alternate between envisioning my wife's face and her boss's. I stay put Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. On Monday, I start making calls first to my office, letting them know I'll be out for a bit, but can be contacted for emergencies. Next, I call my go-to attorney for any company-related legal issues who recommends a divorce lawyer. Thursday, I've got a meeting with a lawyer I've contacted. Then I'm on the phone with the bank, putting a hold on our shared accounts. Next up, credit cards, canceling them all and asking for new ones to be sent out. Being alone in the woods has given me some clarity about my next steps, so I find myself trembling again, questioning whether I'm really going to go through with this or try to salvage our marriage. After I get home, I find this subreddit and start reading other people's stories. It helps, but only a little midweek. I head into the office and chat with my HR manager. We have a close professional relationship that's about to get more personal. I spill the beans and ask for advice on how to approach their company. She advised me to talk to my lawyer before I do anything. She'd asked if I'm going to get tested. She recommends someone and also says I should see my doctor for an STD check. I make calls to both and set up appointments for Thursday. I meet with my now lawyer, show her the video. This time I can actually listen. She starts shaking her head and says, "Why do people do such stupid things?" Turns out she has absolutely no tolerance for cheaters. Her husband cheated on her and dragged her through hell, so much so that she changed her practice and became a divorce attorney. She reassures me that everything will be okay, and I sign a contract with her. I ask about telling the wives and the bosses, HR, and she says we should wait. In the meantime, I've had a meeting with my wife. She's taken refuge at our son's place. At least she's wise enough to understand that I need some space and wasn't at the house when I returned. I've been crashing on the couch because I can't bear to step foot in our bedroom when I need to grab stuff. I try to get as much as possible to minimize the number of times I have to enter that room. Thanks for sticking with me this far. It took an eternity to type this out. Writing about my daughter had me in tears for several hours. I'll provide another update next week. Update. Once again, I want to express my deep gratitude for all the advice and support I've received from this community. I'm indebted to each and every one of you in a way I can never repay. All I can do is say thank you and try to respond to all the comments. The support and encouragement have been incredibly helpful. Many of you have commented on the strength I showed during the confrontation, but right now I feel anything but strong. I'm just going through the motions. All the advice has been excellent and is helping me move forward. Secondly, the reason for this post and my original one was because I was seeking help. Trust me, there was plenty. Given the reason my first post was removed, I was told it was because it had too much storytelling and not enough requests for support. I'll try to keep this brief, but I believe details are important. I'm starting to accept that there's likely no coming back from this, and I'm 99% certain of what my decision will be. Yet I can't shake the thought that I'll be discarding 29 years of our shared life. Even now, I can't bring myself to type X and still refer to her as my wife. What's wrong with me? Help! On D-Day, she ended up at our son's place with his wife. He called, puzzled about what was going on and why I'd kicked his mom out. I told him she needed to tell him or I would. He knew I'd gone to my best friend's house. My daughter, who was supposed to be dog-sitting, came home to find no dog. Eventually, she showed up at my friend's place, wanting to know what was wrong. I told her the pain on her face was worse than catching my wife in bed with her boss, and it devastated me. She left with the dog to our house and had her fiancé come over on Saturday morning. I told my friend I was going to spend a few days at the cabin. Could he drop me home? He agreed it was a good idea. So I packed up, took the dog, and spent some time at the cabin, walking in the woods with the dog and splitting firewood. It was a good workout and therapy unit. I stayed there until Saturday, then drove home. On Monday, I started making phone calls to the bank credit card companies and a lawyer I use for company matters. He recommended someone whom I called and met on Thursday. I played her the recording. She was extremely confident, and I hired her. I asked about informing my wife's boss in our department, and she suggested we hold off. I'm home now, sleeping on the couch. I can't bring myself to go into the bedroom except for clothes. On Friday, my son called to tell me his mom couldn't stay there anymore. It was causing strain for him and his wife. Could she come home? I hadn't spoken to my wife since D-Day. I reluctantly agreed. She returned on Saturday. I went back to the cabin. It was freezing, but I managed. On Monday, I went straight to the office. The people there love my dog and he gets spoiled. I finally went home on Monday night when I saw my wife. All I could see was the image of her in bed with her boss on D-Day. I don't think I'll ever get past that. Any suggestions? We didn't speak. I changed and went to my basement office to keep busy. Eventually, I watched TV in the basement. She came downstairs and asked if we could talk about this. I told her I wasn't ready yet and asked her to leave me alone while she was there. I fell asleep in the recliner, woke up early, went to the gym, showered there, and went to work. My routine is to go home late for the rest of the week. On Friday, my manager checks in on me. I fill her in on the recent events and my therapist visit. She suggests that I should stop sleeping on couches and chairs and buy a new bed. I think it's a fantastic idea. I withdraw half of the remaining joint account funds, which is my wife's share, and head out to buy a new bed. The delivery is scheduled for Saturday. I wait at the office for the call that they'll be there in 30 minutes. I stop to pick up a couple of subs for the delivery guys and wait nearby when they arrive. I meet them, treat them to lunch, and give each of them $1.25 to do me a favor. I ask them not to haul away the old mattress, and if they could come back later to pick it up. I ask them to lean it against a tree near the street. They look puzzled, and I tell them to give me 5 minutes and come in. They'll understand. Now, I had thought about burning the old mattress in the driveway, but I didn't want to deal with the cleanup. I go upstairs and strip the bedding while I'm doing this. Something comes back to me that I need to find out about. I take a can of blaze orange spray paint that we use for marking properties we're working on, and spray wife cheated on me in our bed in big letters. The guys come in and my wife asks, "What's happening?" I tell her I can't sleep in that bed anymore and that she bought me a new one. She seems upset but retreats downstairs. The new bed is set up and the guys leave the old mattress where I requested. After a while, she informs me that they left the old mattress in the yard and that they'll be back for it. I respond, struggling to keep a straight face. I don't think she's caught on yet, but the entire neighborhood certainly has come Valentine's Day. She attempts to be romantic and initiates intimacy. I reject her, stating that I wouldn't take her up on the offer even if she were the last woman on earth. She retorts, saying that we don't just have sex, we make love. Her voice filled with distress. I countered that we haven't made love since she started sleeping with her boss. She looks taken aback. Did she think I'd forget? I'm utterly baffled by her thought process. I decide it's as good a time as any to have a discussion and ask her to sit down in the living room. I ask her what she wants to do. Should we attempt to mend things or should we divorce and move on? I'm not sure why I even proposed the former. I guess I'm hung up on the idea of discarding 29 years. Please convince me otherwise. She claims she's willing to do anything. I ask to rectify the situation and pleads for my forgiveness. I tell her she needs to confess to everyone in our family, starting with her parents and my mom, including the details of how I discovered the affair. Our kids aren't aware of this detail yet. They're visiting tonight. I'll provide an update later on how that unfolds. That's my current situation. I'm still in a state of shock from everything and constantly battling the urge to confront her boss, but I still need advice. When will things start to improve? Or is this my new reality? Update. Update. That evening, my dad, passed away 3 years ago. Her parents, her sister, and brother-in-law all come over. We all settle in the living room, and I make sure to sit as far away from her as possible. They start with the comforting words. What's wrong? We love you. Everything will be okay. Assuming someone is seriously ill, I glance at her and say, this story isn't going to tell itself. Her dad looks at me and I swear his eyes are saying, oh no, as if he senses what's coming. I have to give her credit. She tearfully confesses everything, including the part where I walked in on them in our bed. After a long, uncomfortable silence, she pleads. Somebody say something, I respond. What are they supposed to say? That you're a terrible person, that you've hurt me more than you can imagine, ripped my heart out, thrown away 29 years and ruined our family, not to mention the damage you two have done to his family. Was the sex really worth all that? I just keep going. All the anger, hatred, and betrayal I've been bottling up comes pouring out. I didn't know I could be so harsh. Her mom finally says that's enough. She agrees that she deserves it all and runs upstairs crying. Her mom tries to follow her, but her dad says, no, leave her alone. She needs to suffer for a while before this can get any better. We chat for a bit. They offer their support and tell me if I need anything, just ask. I tell them I've been seeing a counselor and I think I'll be okay. But I appreciate their offer. I tell them that despite everything, I still love her and that she's going to need them more than I do. I go to bed and sleep better than I have since D-Day. The next morning, before I leave, I go into the guest room and can tell she didn't sleep and has been crying all night. I truly believe that for the first time since D-Day. The gravity of what's happening has finally hit her, telling her family and having me lash out at her like I did. I think it snapped her out of the affair. Fog. She looks like she's genuinely remorseful. I tell her we need to talk more like I talk. She listens. I explain that I'm 99% leaning towards divorce, but I'm still clinging to the 1% life raft that if there's any hope, she needs to do what I ask to help me get over this. She says she'll do anything just to please not do anything yet. I remind her of a story I told her when my dad died when I was 17. My dad shared some wisdom with me. He said, you'll face tough times in life, but how you handle them speaks volumes about your character. Never make crucial decisions when you're upset. At the time, I brushed it off with a casual, yeah, Dad, whatever. I start to tear up as I say how much I wish he were here so I could tell him that I was really listening. She gets up and hugs me. I don't reciprocate, but it feels comforting, which unnerves me. She sits back down, and I tell her she needs to move out. I can't heal if I see her every day. We need to go. No contact. She agrees, and asks what else she can do. I tell her I'm too emotional to think straight now, but I'll let her know. On my way to work, I call my lawyer and arrange to meet her today. She's free, so we meet for coffee. I update her on everything, the 99% dilemma, etc. I ask her to prepare divorce papers in case I decide to proceed. She suggests that if I can afford it, I should find an apartment for my wife and pay the first month's rent. This would demonstrate good faith if things go to court. I agree, and she says she'll have something for me to review by Monday. I call a real estate broker we've worked with over the years, explain the situation and what I need. He refers me to a rental agent. The agent finds a suitable place, and I meet with the property manager to pay for the rest of February, March, and the deposit. When I get home, I tell my wife about the apartment, what I've paid for, and that she needs to meet the manager and sign the lease. It's a 6-month lease, which seems like a plus. She's surprised by how quickly I've acted. I tell her that I needed her not to come home from our sons while she's gone. I arrange for movers to come on Saturday when she gets home. I tell her about the movers and ask why she hasn't asked about finances. I inform her that I've canceled the credit cards, withdrawn my half from our joint account, and canceled the debit card. She seems angry, but admits she doesn't blame me. It turns out she hasn't needed to spend anything as she's been splitting her time between our son's place and home. She also reveals that she requested a leave of absence from work due to personal issues. They allowed her to take her paid vacation first on Friday. I tell her she can take whatever she needs for the new place. Just leave me some essentials and nothing from the basement or any family heirlooms and my new bed. I also tell her that I'm open to marriage counseling. She should find 3 different counselors and I'll choose the one I think is best. I leave early on Saturday morning and return to a half-empty house, including the TV. That's okay. I wanted a bigger one anyway. My friend still has my liquor, so I stopped by to pick up my favorite bourbon and enjoy a glass while typing this. Sorry this was so long. Thanks for reading this far. Tomorrow I'm hitting the gym, making my favorite chili and buying a new TV. I'm sure I'll have more to post in the future. This story is titled, I gave my parents $2,000 every month for 3 years. But when I came for Christmas, they kicked me out. So I took my revenge. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Man, I never thought I'd be typing this out at 2 a.m., sitting in my home office. But after the shit show that went down this Christmas, I need to get this off my chest. Been lurking on this sub for months, reading other people's stories, thinking, damn, at least my family's not that bad. Well, turns out I was wrong. So fucking wrong. For context, I'm 34, and I've spent the last 8 years climbing the ladder in medical device sales. You know those crazy expensive machines and implants that keep people alive in hospitals? That's my world. And let me tell you, it wasn't handed to me on a silver platter like my parents seem to think. First year in the business, lived out of my 2008 Honda Civic. No joke. Commission-only sales are brutal when you're starting out. Imagine trying to convince surgeons to trust you with their patients' lives when you're sleeping in a Planet Fitness parking lot and showering at the gym. But that's what it took to break into the industry. My parents thought I was insane for giving up my stable office job, boring AF data entry gig that was slowly killing my soul, to pursue this. Why can't you just be happy with a normal job? Was their favorite line back then. But I grinded. Hard. Like wake up at 4:30 a.m., hit the gym by 5, cause looking professional matters in this industry, on the road by 7, and usually don't finish with surgeons until late. Sometimes I'd be in the OR until 9 p.m., watching procedures to learn the equipment better. That first year was hell, but it paid off. Hit top seller in my region 3 years running now, pulling in solid 6 figures. Not trying to flex. Trust me, this matters for the story. Built myself up from literally nothing. Got my own place now. Decent 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood. Nothing crazy luxurious, but it's mine. And yeah, I'm single. Dated here and there, had a serious relationship that ended last year. She wanted me to slow down and take more vacation. Like, that's not how you stay on top in this industry. My folks never understood that grind mentality. They ran their antique restoration business the same way for 25 years. Never tried to expand, never took risks. Speaking of their business, that's where this whole mess started. When COVID hit, everything went to shit. Their shop was actually pretty successful before that. They restored old furniture, did custom work for some high-end clients, had a solid reputation in our city. But when everything shut down, orders dried up overnight. Their regular customers disappeared, new projects got canceled, and suddenly they're sitting on a warehouse full of half-finished pieces and bills they couldn't pay. That's when it started. The calls, the subtle hints about their struggles. They're reminiscing about how they'd always been there for me. And yeah, they had been, in their way. Put a roof over my head, sent me to decent schools, public, but in a good district. Never missed a birthday. So when they needed help, I couldn't say no. Started sending them $2,000 every month. Doesn't sound like much compared to some stories I've read on here, but do the math. That's $24,000 a year. $72,000 over 3 years. Could have bought a Tesla with that money. Not that I would, because depreciation is a bitch, but you get the point. At first, it felt good, like I was finally paying them back for everything. They were so grateful in the beginning. Mom would cry on the phone, Dad would tell me how proud he was. But you know how these things go. Gradually, the gratitude turned into expectation. The thank yous became shorter. The calls started focusing more on what they needed next. The part that really gets me? My brother Jake. Dude's 31, lives in their basement with his gaming setup and his streaming career that makes about enough to buy a pizza every month. But somehow, I'm the bad guy. Because I occasionally mention that $2,000 is a lot to send every month. Meanwhile, he's posting on Instagram about his hustle and grind with pictures of his setup and his energy drinks. Real hard worker, that one. I used to defend him when we were kids. He was my little bro, you know? When he got bullied in high school for being the weird kid who was too into anime, I had his back. When he dropped out of community college because school isn't for everyone, I supported him. Told our parents to give him time to figure his shit out. Well, it's been 10 years, and the only thing he's figured out is how to mooch more effectively. Looking back now, I can see how it all led to what happened this Christmas. The signs were there. The way Mom would slip Jake's career goals into conversation. How Dad started talking about family legacy and supporting each other. The passive-aggressive texts about how some people have it easier than others. I just never thought it would blow up the way it did. Never imagined I'd end up here, typing this out at 2 a.m., trying to make sense of how I gave them $72,000 and somehow ended up being the villain in their story. And that's just the setup. Trust me, it gets so much worse. That $2,000 started feeling less like helping family and more like feeding a black hole. You know that feeling when you're working out and you've got too much weight on the bar? Like you can still lift it, but your form is suffering and you know something's gonna give? That's how this felt. Every single month. My typical day starts at 4:30 a.m. I'm up before the sun, downing pre-workout and hitting golds by 5. Gotta stay sharp in this industry. Surgeons respect you more when you look like you've got your shit together. I'm usually the first one there, doing my routine under those flickering fluorescent lights while the morning crew is still setting up. By 7, I'm showered, suited up, and hitting the road. My territory covers 3 major hospitals and about a dozen smaller surgery centers. Here's what people don't get about medical device sales. It's not just schmoozing doctors. I'm in operating rooms, watching procedures, making sure my equipment works perfectly, because someone's life is literally on the line. One screw-up, one moment of not paying attention, and I could lose everything I've built. The pressure is insane. So yeah, maybe I get a little bitter when I'm standing in an OR for 6 hours straight, watching a complex spine surgery, knowing that $2,000 of my commission is going straight to my parents, while Jake's probably still in his pajamas, streaming Fortnite to his 12 followers. No joke, checked his Twitch stats once out of curiosity. Most views he ever got was 15, and pretty sure 3 of those were our cousins. The weekly family calls became this weird psychological warfare. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., like clockwork, Mom would start with the usual stuff. How's work? Am I eating right? Have I met anyone nice? But there was always this undertone, you know? This subtle guilt trip that got less subtle every week. Oh, Ryan, you work so hard. We're so proud of you. Translation: you make good money. Why aren't you sharing more? Jake's been making real progress with his channel. Translation: your brother needs better equipment. Hint, hint. The house needs some repairs, but we're managing. Translation: we're expecting next month's check on time. Meanwhile, Jake's voice would pipe up from the background. Yo, bro, you should check out my latest stream. Hit a new record for subscribers. Yeah, cool story, bro. Pretty sure going from 8 to 9 subs isn't exactly setting Twitch on fire. The thing that really gets me? I'd see his Amazon packages piling up on their porch when I'd visit. New gaming chair, LED lights for his studio, some ridiculous $300 microphone setup. All while I'm calculating how many surgeries I need to book to keep up with sending them money. I tried talking to my best friend Mike about it once, during our weekly BJJ session. Started taking classes 2 years ago. Best stress relief ever. He just looked at me like I was insane. Dude, you're basically paying your brother's allowance at 31. That's messed up. But here's the real kicker. I started noticing weird stuff on social media. Jake would post these long rants about fake successful people and how some folks peaked in high school. Pretty sure those were aimed at me, considering I was the captain of the wrestling team while he was trying to start an anime club. The worst part? Mom would like and comment on these posts. Stuff like, Everyone has their own path, sweetie. Like, are you serious? You're endorsing this shit while cashing my checks? Then Jake started this whole entrepreneurship coach thing on Instagram. Posted a picture of himself in front of my Audi that I bought used, BITW, with some BS caption about manifesting success and building an empire. Had to tell him to take it down before my clients saw it. Could you imagine if a surgeon saw that and thought I was associated with his clown show? I started dreading those monthly transfers. Every time I'd hit send on my banking app, I'd feel this knot in my stomach. Started putting off stuff I needed. Delayed getting new suits for work, kept driving on tires that needed replacing, skipped a dental cleaning. All while watching Jake post about his latest investments in his streaming career. The real gut punch came during one of our Sunday calls. Mom was going on about how hard things were, and Jake chimes in with, "Yeah, but at least I'm here for mom and dad, not just throwing money at them from a distance." The audacity of this dude, sitting in their basement, contributing nothing, having the nerve to criticize me. So about a week before Christmas, I'm just finishing up a complicated knee replacement case. Shout out to Dr. Anderson, dude's a beast in the OR, when my phone starts blowing up. 3 missed calls from mom in the span of 20 minutes. For reference, my mom usually texts once and waits patiently for a response. Multiple calls means something's either really wrong or she's about to drop some serious manipulation. I step out of the OR, still in my surgical scrubs, and call her back. Her voice has that tone. You know the one. That sickly sweet, guilt-dripping tone that makes your stomach drop before she even gets to the point. "Ryan, sweetheart, I was just calling about Christmas dinner. Like she's summoning me to court or something. Now, let me paint you a picture of our usual family Christmas. Picture one of those Hallmark movies, then add a healthy dose of passive-aggressive comments, subtract all the joy, and multiply the tension by about 1,000. That's Christmas at my parents' house. But this year, something felt different. Don't forget how important family is, Ryan. We've all sacrificed so much." There it was. The S word. In my family, sacrifice is code for, "You better show up with your wallet open." Meanwhile, I can hear Jake in the background, probably streaming, his voice doing that fake excited YouTuber thing. "Don't forget to smash that like button, fam." I'm standing there in the hospital hallway, still sweating from being in the OR for 4 hours, listening to my mom go on about family tradition while my 31-year-old brother is literally yelling about Twitch subscribers in the background. The contrast was so absurd I almost laughed. But here's where I fucked up. I decided to go big this year. Like, really big. I had just closed a massive deal with a new orthopedic group. Commission hadn't hit yet, but I knew it was coming, and I was feeling generous. Went to Best Buy and dropped $1,800 on this sick 65-inch OLED TV. Top of the line, perfect blacks, 120 Hz refresh rate. The kind of TV normal people look at and think, maybe next year. The sales guy at Best Buy, Kevin, cool dude, actually knows his tech, tried to talk me into the 55-inch instead. "Better value for money," he said. But no, I had to be the big shot. Had to prove something. Looking back, Kevin was trying to save me from myself. Kevin, if you're reading this, you were right, bro. While I'm picking out the TV, Jake's blowing up our family group chat with links to his latest streams. Almost at 100 followers. Narrator, he was not almost at 100 followers. Dad's responding with those generic dad emojis that he thinks make him look tech savvy. Mom's sending heart reactions to everything. Meanwhile, I'm dropping nearly $2,000 on a TV that'll probably end up being used to watch Jake's streams in cinematic quality. The weird thing was, Dad had been acting strange on our calls lately. Usually he's the chattier one, always wanting to talk about sports or complain about the neighbors. But lately, radio silence. He'd get on these family calls and just exist, like a statue that occasionally grunts in agreement with Mom. And Mom? She developed this new habit of ending every conversation with some cryptic comment about big changes coming or family pulling together. Real subtle, Mom. About as subtle as a sledgehammer to the face. I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. Jake suddenly starting to clean up his streaming room, first time in probably years. Mom asking weirdly specific questions about my work schedule and commission structure. Dad's suspicious silence. It was like watching a horror movie where you're screaming at the protagonist not to go into the basement, except I was the dumbass walking down those stairs. The day before Christmas, I'm at the gym, 'cause gains don't take holidays, and I get this text from Jake. "Yo, bro, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Got big news to share." First text he'd sent me directly in months that wasn't a stream link or a request to support the channel. That should have been the final red flag. But no, I'm there doing my deadlifts, thinking maybe he's finally grown up. Maybe he's got a real job. Maybe tomorrow won't be a complete shit show. I wrote this nice card about family and appreciation and all that Hallmark crap. Talked about how proud I was of them for getting through the tough times after their business closed. How I was happy I could help out. Real emotional stuff that probably ended up in the trash before the TV was even unboxed. Christmas morning started with the kind of winter chill that gets into your bones. I remember sitting in my car outside their house for a good 10 minutes. Engine running, heat on full blast, just watching my breath fog up the windows. The Audi's leather seats were cold against my back, and that $1,800 TV was taking up so much space, I had to angle the rearview mirror just to see anything. It was barely 11 a.m., but I'd already hit the gym. Holiday gains are still gains. Meal prepped for the week, discipline doesn't take holidays. And wrapped that damn TV 3 times because the corners kept tearing. You know that scene in war movies where the soldier takes one last look at a photo before going into battle? That's how I felt checking my banking app, staring at that $2,000 transfer I'd made 2 days early as a Christmas surprise. 3 years of transfers, never missed one, never late. The things we do for family, right? The moment I walked up to their door, I knew something was off. You know how your childhood home has this specific smell? Like a mix of whatever your mom cooks and the fabric softener she's used since the 90s? That smell hit me like a wall, but there was something else in the air. Tension. The kind you can taste. Mom opened the door with what I call her real estate agent smile. All teeth, no warmth. She was wearing this Christmas sweater I'd bought her last year, probably for the guilt points. Barely made eye contact as she ushered me in, immediately disappearing into the kitchen with some excuse about checking the turkey. The living room looked like a Twitch streamer's idea of Christmas decor. Jake had apparently convinced them to set up RGB light strips along the ceiling. It's for the holiday aesthetic, Mom. His streaming setup was visible through the basement door. More lights, multiple monitors, and what looked like a new gaming chair. Cool to see where my support money was going. Dad was planted in his recliner, the same one he's had since I was in high school. He gave me this weird nod, like he was acknowledging a stranger at a gas station, not his son on Christmas morning. The TV was playing some basketball game, but his eyes were glued to his phone, probably checking Jake's latest subscriber count or whatever. Speaking of Jake, my brother made his grand entrance about 15 minutes after I arrived. Came strutting up from his basement lair wearing what had to be a knockoff Supreme hoodie and carrying his newest streaming accessory, some kind of professional camera setup that definitely wasn't in the budget I'd heard about. Yo, what's good, family? He had that fake YouTuber voice going, the one he uses in his streams. Probably force of habit at this point. Big bro, looking corporate as usual. That was a dig at my outfit. Nothing fancy, just a decent sweater and jeans. But apparently anything that's not covered in anime characters counts as corporate in Jake's world. The TV handoff was awkward as hell. I'd barely got the wrapping paper off when Jake started talking about how this would be perfect for his streaming room. Mom jumped in with some weak, "Oh, but it should stay in the living room, honey," while Dad just kept staring at his phone. Cool, cool. Just the $1,800 family TV becoming a Twitch backdrop. No big deal. Dinner started like a hostage negotiation. Everyone walking on eggshells, passing dishes with forced smiles. Mom's turkey was dry, but I was shoveling it down just to have something to do besides talk. The silence was thick enough to cut with the fancy knife set I'd bought them last Christmas, which, by the way, looked suspiciously unused. Then Jake dropped the bomb. Must be nice having all that extra cash while your family struggles. He said it with a mouthful of mashed potatoes, not even looking up from his plate. The words hung in the air like smoke, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Before I could process that, Dad cleared his throat. You know that sound people make when they're about to say something they've rehearsed? Yeah, that one. Son, we need to talk about the monthly support. I remember putting my fork down, real slow, like in those movies where you know shit's about to go down. Mom's hands were fidgeting with her napkin, a tell she's had since I was a kid. Jake had this smirk on his face that I wanted to wipe off with his knockoff Supreme hoodie. We think it's time to adjust the amount, Dad continued, still not making eye contact. Given the current situation, we believe $4,000 would be more appropriate. $4,000. I didn't choke on my food, but it was close. The turkey suddenly felt like sandpaper in my throat. All I could think about was the basic math. That's $48,000 a year. More than some nurses make. More than a lot of people make. Jake needs some startup capital for his career, Mom chimed in, like she was asking me to pass the gravy instead of double my financial support. The streaming industry is very competitive, and proper equipment is essential. I looked around the table. At my dad's new smartwatch. When did he get that? At Jake's designer hoodie. Fake or not, that stuff isn't cheap. At the RGB lit room that looked more like a gaming cafe than my childhood home. 3 years of my support, of working extra cases, of skipping vacations, of putting off my own life, and this is what it came to. That's when Jake, my dear brother, decided to really twist the knife. Yeah, bro, not everyone can sell out for a corporate job. Some of us are trying to build something real here. You ever have one of those moments where you can actually feel your blood pressure rising? Where you can hear your heartbeat in your ears? Where everything gets kind of quiet and sharp at the same time? Yeah. Welcome to my Christmas. I told them I will think about it, and just left. After that Christmas disaster, I spent the next few days in a fog. You know that feeling after a bad breakup where everything feels slightly unreal? Like that, but worse because it's your own family that just tried to financially hijack you. I threw myself into work, picked up extra cases. Shout out to the ER docs who actually appreciate someone showing up at 3 a.m. for emergency surgeries, and practically lived at the gym. Speaking of the gym, that's where everything started unraveling. 3 days after Christmas, I'm at this bougie fitness center near the hospital. It's one of those places with actual towel service and water that comes in glass bottles. The kind of place I'd never have dreamed of joining before this job. I justify the expensive membership because it's where a lot of the surgeons work out. And in medical device sales, relationships are everything. I'm in the middle of my deadlift set, 545 for reps, since everyone keeps DMing me about my routine. When I hear someone call my name, look up to see Mike Peterson, this guy I went to high school with. Mike's in real estate now, does high-end properties in our area. We do that awkward, I'm trying to be friendly, but also I'm drenched in sweat conversation that happens at gyms. Then he says something that makes me drop the barbell mid-rep. Hey, saw your parents last week. They're looking at some sweet vacation properties down in Florida. Must be nice to retire in style, right? The sound of 545 pounds hitting the platform got some looks, but I barely noticed. Vacation properties? Florida? What the actual fuck? What do you mean vacation properties? I managed to ask, trying to sound casual while my brain was short-circuiting. Mike, bless his unsuspecting heart, just keeps going. Oh yeah, they're looking at this nice community near Naples. Pretty high-end stuff. They mentioned something about selling their business for a good chunk of change a few months back. Smart move in this market. I must have looked like I was having a stroke, because Mike quickly changed the subject to asking about protein powder recommendations. But the damage was done. My parents, who I'd been supporting for 3 years because they lost everything in the pandemic, had apparently sold their business and were shopping for vacation homes. Part of being successful in medical device sales is being able to investigate and network. So I did what any betrayed son with a lot of professional contacts would do. I started digging. First call was to Tom, my buddy who works at the bank where my parents have their business accounts. We play poker together monthly, and he owed me for covering his buy-in last game. Hey man, weird question, but what happened to that antique restoration business on Oak Street? Tom's response was interesting. Really interesting. Oh yeah, they sold it in September. Pretty good deal from what I heard. Why? September. They sold the business in September, 3 months ago, while still cashing my $2,000 checks. Next call was to Sarah, who works at the real estate office handling commercial properties in our area. We dated briefly last year, ended things amicably. Hey, remember that furniture restoration shop my parents owned? Any idea what it sold for? She couldn't give me exact numbers, confidentiality and all that, but she did drop a hint. Let's just say they won't be worrying about bills for a while. But here's where it gets really good. Remember Jake's streaming setup? Those fancy new electronics? That professional camera? I started going through his Amazon reviews. Yes, he actually reviews everything he buys like he's some tech influencer. The timestamps on his purchases lined up perfectly with my monthly transfers. They weren't using my money for bills. They were funding Jake's wannabe influencer lifestyle. I went full detective mode. Started pulling up old text messages, bank statements, everything. Made a spreadsheet, yeah, I'm that guy, tracking when I sent money versus when Jake suddenly got new streaming equipment. The pattern was so obvious it was almost funny, except it wasn't funny at all. Remember that Christmas sweater mom was wearing? The one I bought her last year? Found the exact same one listed for sale on her Facebook marketplace. Posted 2 days after Christmas. Description, new with tags, unwanted gift. I spent 3 years sending them $2,000 a month. That's $72,000 total. For perspective, that's more than a down payment on a decent house. The cost of a Tesla Model 3. 4 years of in-state college tuition, 36,000 cups of coffee, which I clearly needed to wake up and see what was happening. And what did they do with it? Funded Jake's pipe dreams and apparently went house hunting in Florida. The real gut punch? Found an old email thread between my parents and their business broker from August. They hadn't lost everything during the pandemic. They'd actually pivoted to online sales and done pretty well. The business sold because they wanted to retire, not because they were struggling. Everything. The sad phone calls, the guilt trips, the stories about struggling to pay bills. It was all a script. A long con, written and performed by my own family, with me as the unwitting ATM. You ever have one of those moments where you're so angry that everything becomes crystal clear? Like weirdly calm, but in an I might actually flip a table kind of way? That was me, pulling up to my parents' house at 8:06 p.m. on a Tuesday night, still wearing my suit from a day of surgical cases. I'd spent the afternoon in a complex spinal fusion, watching a surgeon literally reconstruct someone's backbone. Funny how life gives you these little metaphors, right? Because that's exactly what I needed. A backbone. My Audi's headlights lit up their garage door like a spotlight. Dad's new car was there. A fresh BMW 3 Series that apparently manifested out of their struggling finances. Real subtle, guys. Really selling that poverty narrative. Still had my key. Ironic, given how they'd locked me out emotionally years ago. The house was warm, TV going in the living room, my TV, the $1,800 OLED I'd bought them for Christmas, now playing some Twitch stream. Jake's stream, to be specific. Because of course it was. Mom was in her reading chair, scrolling through Zillow, probably checking Florida property prices. Dad was pretending to read the newspaper while actually watching Jake's stream on his phone. And there was Jake himself, sprawled on the couch like some wannabe tech mogul, talking into his new microphone about building an authentic brand to his dozen viewers. The family tableau. Picture perfect. Until I dropped a thick manila envelope on the coffee table. We need to talk. Jake actually jumped. Mom's phone slipped from her hands. Dad just got very still, like prey animals do when they spot a predator. They knew. They all knew exactly what was in that envelope. Ryan, honey, we weren't expecting, Mom started, but I cut her off. Clearly. I pulled out the first document. So, funny story. Ran into Mike Peterson at the gym. You remember Mike? Real estate guy? He mentioned something interesting about vacation properties in Florida. The color drained from Mom's face. Dad suddenly found his newspaper fascinating. But that got me thinking, why would my struggling parents who need $2,000 a month to survive be looking at vacation homes? So I did some digging. I started laying out papers like dealing cards, business sale documents from September, bank statements, Jake's Amazon purchase history, even found your old email threads with the business broker. Jake tried to interrupt. Bro, you're making this weird. I'm making this weird. The laugh that came out of me didn't sound entirely sane. You literally wrote, convince R to increase monthly support on your content strategy board. I saw the Instagram post, Jake. Real professional, by the way. Really selling that influencer lifestyle. Mom tried damage control. Sweetheart, we can explain... Explain what? How you sold the business for a profit while telling me you were struggling? How you used my money to fund Jake's midlife crisis? Or maybe explain this... I pulled out a printed screenshot of her Facebook Marketplace listing, the Christmas sweater I'd bought her. At least wait until I leave before reselling my gifts, Mom. Dad finally spoke up, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he used when we were kids. Now listen here. No, you listen. 3 years of suppressed rage has a way of making your voice carry. I spent 3 years sending you $72,000. I skipped vacations, delayed buying a house, put off my own life, and the whole time, you were lying to me. Jake made the mistake of smirking. Not our fault you're dumb enough to... I took one step toward him. Just one. But those BJJ classes must have shown in my movement, because he literally sank deeper into the couch. Funny how a basement-dwelling streamer loses his nerve when confronted by someone who doesn't just talk tough in a gaming chair. I've got an itemized list of everything you bought with my money, I continued, pulling out more papers. The streaming equipment, Dad's BMW, the Florida property viewings. Even found the receipt for Jake's fake Supreme merch. Real, authentic brand building there, bro. Mom was crying now. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen before, but real ones. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Jake was trying to disappear into the couch cushions. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. The monthly transfers stop today. I've already set up alerts with my bank. Any attempts to guilt trip me, manipulate me, or squeeze more money out of me will result in me posting every single piece of evidence I have online. Every receipt, every lie, every manipulation. I'm sure Jake's 12 followers would love to see how authentic his brand really is. The silence was deafening. Even Jake's stream chat had gone quiet, probably wondering why their favorite content creator was suddenly looking like he'd seen a ghost. Ryan, please, Mom tried one last time. We're family. No, I replied, gathering my documents. Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't lie, manipulate, and steal from each other. You're not my family. You're just people who saw me as an ATM. I walked out, leaving them with their fake Supreme merch, their BMW payments, and their Florida dream homes. The last thing I heard was Jake's stream notification. DankMemer420 has unfollowed. Perfect fucking ending. Final update. It's been 6 months since the confrontation. And let me tell you how it all went down after I cut them off financially. First, Jake's streaming career imploded. Turns out when you can't keep buying new equipment and paying for bot followers, it's hard to maintain the illusion of success. His subscriber count, the real ones, not the bots, dropped from his peak of 15 to a solid 3. Pretty sure one of those is his alt account. Then, the truth about their struggling business started spreading in our community. Remember my friend Mike from the gym? Turns out real estate agents talk. A lot. Soon everyone knew how they'd sold the business for a profit while still taking money from their son. The looks they get at church must be interesting. The Florida dream home? Gone. Their realtor friend, who's now my realtor friend, funny how that works, told me they had to pull out of all property viewings. Apparently their retirement fund wasn't as robust as they thought once they lost their monthly Ryan supplement. But here's the best part. 3 weeks ago, I'm finishing up a complex case at the hospital. 12-hour surgery. The kind that reminds you why you got into medical device sales in the first place. Saving lives, making a difference, all that good stuff. I check my work email afterward, and there it is. A message from Mom sent to my company email, because I'd blocked her everywhere else. The subject line? We need to talk. Urgent family matter. The email was a masterpiece of desperation. Turns out Jake's car wasn't the only thing they bought on credit. That BMW Dad was so proud of, also financed. The new furniture they bought for their imaginary Florida home? Credit cards. They'd been living large on the assumption that their personal ATM, me, would keep dispensing cash. Now they're drowning in debt. Real debt. Not the fake kind they pretended to have before. Jake had to sell his streaming setup piece by piece on eBay. Saw the listings. It's painful how much technology depreciates. He's working at GameStop now, which would be ironic if it wasn't so sad. Apparently, telling customers why they should buy the extended warranty isn't quite as glamorous as being a Twitch star. Mom's email ended with a proposal. If I agreed to help them temporarily with their bills, they'd give me partial ownership of their house. You know, the house they claimed they might lose? The one that's probably mortgaged to hell by now? Hard pass. I sent back a one-line reply. New phone. Who dis? Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Last I heard, Jake's trying to rebrand himself as a financial advisor on TikTok, because apparently giving advice about money is his thing now. His first video? How to build wealth through family connections. The audacity is almost impressive. Mom still sends the occasional text from new numbers. Last one said they're ready to rebuild our relationship on new terms. Yeah, the terms where their ATM got shut down and they actually have to live within their means. Tough terms, those. The TV I bought them for Christmas? They tried to sell it on Facebook Marketplace last week. Listed it as, like new, barely used, $2,000 OBO. Kinda like our relationship. They tried to squeeze more value out of it than it was worth, and ended up with nothing. I paid my sister's bills for years. She called me the toxic incel brother while using my money. So I took back everything I funded and let the golden child cry herself offline. Hey Reddit, ever live in a house where you pay half the bills but still get treated like the family freeloader? Yeah, that's been my life for the past couple years. 23 male, full-time high school teacher, and somehow I'm still stuck at home. Not by choice, but because rent's a scam, and my family's got the emotional maturity of a group chat meltdown. The worst part? My sister, 17 female, acts like she runs the place. She gets coddled like she's royalty, calls me every insult she can find online, and my mom treats it like it's just teenage sass. Well, I stopped playing along. And when I finally flipped the script, let's just say the golden child and her hype woman didn't handle reality too well. I work as a full-time high school teacher and somehow still live at home. Not by choice, but because rent's a joke, and my dad's income alone can't cover everything. So I split the bills with him. It's manageable. Or, it was manageable until my sister decided I was the physical embodiment of Reddit's worst stereotypes. You know how every family has that one kid that can do no wrong? Yeah, that's her. The golden child. Our parents act like she's a genius because she once watched a documentary on sea turtles, and now she's the smartest person in the house. Meanwhile, I'm over here with a full-time job, paying half the mortgage, and getting called an incel for playing a game after work. I wish I was exaggerating. I seriously do. One day I come home from work, totally fried after breaking up a fight between two hormonal freshmen, sit down to chill with my Switch, and not even 30 seconds in I hear, "Wow, classic incel behavior," from the couch. She doesn't even look up from her phone, like it's just a reflex now. At first, I thought she heard that word online and didn't know what it meant. So I asked her straight up, "Do you even know what an incel is?" She looked me dead in the face and said, "Yeah, you," with this smug little smirk like she just dropped a nuclear truth bomb. It wasn't even funny, just stupid and loud. The problem is, she figured out that word gets to me. So now she uses it like it's my damn nickname. Watching anime? Incel. Wearing headphones? Incel. Making noodles? Only an incel would use that much garlic powder. It's like living with a Twitter comment section. And mom? Oh, mom's living in her own little fantasy land. The kind where her daughter is a sweet, misunderstood angel, and her son is some rude, antisocial neckbeard that needs to lighten up. Every time I bring up my sister's behavior, I get hit with some crap like, she's just expressing herself, or it's a phase, she's 17, or my personal favorite, don't be so sensitive. Right, because having your little sister yank your headphones off mid-game just to call you a virgin loser Discord mod in front of your friend on Discord is totally just teen girl behavior. I tried to vent to mom about it, tell her how humiliating and annoying it's getting. She cut me off halfway and said, "You need to learn to take a joke. You're the adult here." Cool. Guess being an adult now means I'm the designated doormat. Dad's different. Kind of. He doesn't really pick sides. Most days he just tunes it all out and goes to work. He's always working. And I don't blame him. Between my sister's drama and mom acting like a backstage pageant mom, I'd clock extra hours too. But the favoritism? It's clear as day. My sister could come home with a D in math, and mom would say, she's just not a numbers person. I get a B+ in college, and she asked me why I'm slipping. Sis accidentally dented my car bumper once, and mom said I should have parked better. One time, she took my favorite hoodie without asking and spilled juice all over it. Mom's response? "You shouldn't leave your things around." Lady, it was in my closet. I tried the ignore strategy. You know, the whole don't feed the trolls thing. But that made her worse. I'd be minding my own business, grading papers, and she'd walk by and flick the back of my neck just to get me to react. If I didn't respond, she'd say, "Wow, incel and a mute. You're leveling up." This is the same girl who once cried for 2 days because someone didn't like her Instagram story. But she's allowed to treat me like dirt because it's just teasing. So yeah, I'm working all day, paying half the house bills, covering extra stuff like groceries when needed, and I come home to be treated like a walking Reddit insult compilation. I've tried talking to her. I've tried talking to mom. I've even tried just keeping my distance. Nothing works. The golden child gets a free pass every time. She could slap me in the face with a fish and mom would probably say, "Well, he must have provoked her." At this point, I'm just tired. I deal with teenagers all day at school. I shouldn't have to come home and deal with one that has zero consequences for her actions. And the fact that I'm footing part of her lifestyle just makes it worse. But now, I'm seriously done playing along. If things don't change soon, I'm out. I've already looked up a couple of rental listings. I'm not going to keep funding her private tech collection just to be her personal punching bag. Not in this economy. Not when I could have peace and Wi-Fi somewhere else. Let's see how special she feels when I'm gone, and her free ride disappears with me. That was the last thought I had before walking out of my room and finding her slouched on the living room couch, double-chinned and dead-eyed, watching some garbage reality show on her iPad. The same iPad, by the way, I helped pay for during Black Friday because she needed it for school. Apparently school means watching other spoiled brats throw tantrums over iced coffee and Instagram captions. She looked up, spotted me, and without skipping a beat said, "There goes the Discord mod." I didn't even flinch, just stared at her. I was already beyond done. Mom heard it too. She was in the kitchen humming like it was a Disney musical, cutting up strawberries for a smoothie she was probably going to hand feed my sister like she was a baby bird. I waited. Nothing. Not even a, "Hey, don't call your brother names." I stepped in. "You're really okay with her bratty spoiled attitude?" Mom looked at me, blinked like I just interrupted her Oscar-nominated performance, and said, "You're the older one. Be the mature example." Oh, Right. Because maturity means letting your teenage sister turn your existence into her favorite insult. So I laid it out. Told them both in plain words that I'm moving out if this keeps going. Told mom I'm not some backup parent, not a walking ATM, and not her emotional sponge just because she refuses to deal with her daughter's garbage behavior. I thought she'd panic, maybe even pretend to care. Instead, she tilted her head like I was the ungrateful one and went, "So you're just gonna abandon your family?" Abandon. Lady, I pay half the bills. She hasn't paid for a single thing in the house since Netflix was $7.99. My sister grinned like she just watched a villain origin story in real time. She literally picked up her phone, typed something, and giggled. Wouldn't be surprised if I end up as some anonymous, toxic brother story on her close Instagram. The worst part? She legit thinks she's famous. She's got maybe 150 followers and walks around the house like she's Megan Fox. The way she struts in her mismatched socks and 5 pounds of lip gloss, you'd think she's heading to a red carpet and not the pantry for hot Cheetos. Later that night, I caught her in the dining room trying to record one of those POV, my incel brother is mad again videos. I walked in while she was pretending to cry in front of the camera with some sad piano music playing. She yelped, dropped her phone, and screamed, "You ruined my content!" Yeah, sorry for ruining your Oscar audition, kid. My bad for living in the house I helped pay for. Mom came rushing in like someone got stabbed. She sees me standing there, arms crossed, and immediately goes into defense mode. "Why are you always picking on her?" I had to laugh. Like full-on laugh. She's recording fake videos crying about me and I'm picking on her? Mom didn't even flinch. She's expressing herself. Maybe if you were nicer, she wouldn't have to vent online. I could not believe what I was hearing. Could not. I told her flat out, if she posts something with my name in it, I'm reporting it. Don't test me. Mom gasped like I just kicked the family dog. You wouldn't hurt your own sister like that. Ma'am, she's been verbally nuking me for weeks and I haven't even raised my voice. But sure, I'm the threat. By the way, I'd like to mention this. Our house is not a mansion. It's a modest 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the suburbs. You can hear everything through the walls. So when she starts blasting TikToks with those robotic voiceovers mocking guys who build Gundams, I hear every word. She even taped a post-it on my door once that said, "Virgin Cave, enter at own risk." I peeled it off. Next day, there were 3 more. I told my dad about it when he got home that night. I could tell he was trying to stay out of it, but he sighed and rubbed his temples like a man who just realized he forgot his umbrella, and it's pouring. He told me, "Try not to take it personally. She's just being a kid. Number kids draw on walls and forget their homework. This one's running a full-blown humiliation campaign." I reminded him I'm not just some moody brother sulking about name-calling. I'm an adult man, working full-time, putting money into this household, and being disrespected in my own room, in front of guests, even online. He didn't argue, just nodded, quiet. Like he knew I was right but didn't want to say it out loud yet. Meanwhile, Mom's fully lost in La La Land. Later that night, she sits me down like she's about to teach me a life lesson and says, "You need to understand her. Her generation is different. She's sensitive, artistic, emotionally intelligent." Emotionally intelligent? She shoved a sock in my cereal box the other day and called it a prank. When I asked what part of that was intelligent, she went quiet and muttered something about how I never support her creativity. I stood up mid-sentence and just walked out. I didn't slam a door, didn't shout. I just left the room before my brain short-circuited from the stupidity. From that night on, I stopped talking to both of them unless it was about bills or actual logistics. If I came home and she was in the living room, I went to my room. If Mom tried to guilt-trip me, I shut it down with a cool story and walked away. The second I stopped reacting, the second I stopped playing into their weird little family theater, it got worse. But here's the thing. What am I supposed to do? Fight a 17-year-old? Cuss her out? Throw something back? Bro, that'd just make me look like the lunatic. She's still a minor, and I'm a grown man with a job that requires a clean rep. She wants a reaction, and I'm not about to hand it to her just to prove a point. I'm not going to play tug of war with someone who's still doing TikTok dances in the kitchen at midnight while Mom calling her bratty attitude a phase. This wasn't a phase. This was war, and I was done fighting battles with people who needed me more than I needed them. So the next morning, I didn't say a word to anyone. Just woke up early, made my coffee, and sat at the table scrolling through apartment listings. I bookmarked 3. Nothing fancy, just quiet and far enough away that I wouldn't hear the word incel every time I exhaled. Dad came into the kitchen mid-scroll. He looked tired, more than usual. I didn't waste time. I told him straight. I'm moving out. Not bluffing. Not trying to scare anyone. Just a heads up before I actually pack a box. He didn't argue this time. No sigh. No, she's just young. He just sat down, nodded once, and said, I get it. I told him I wasn't leaving to be dramatic. I was leaving because every time I walked through the door, I felt like a punching bag with a Wi-Fi password. He looked down at his mug, then back at me. You've been paying for all her stuff, haven't you? Yeah, I said. Every bit of it. Laptop, switch, her phone upgrade, her desk. I didn't mind before. But now? Nah. That's when he flipped. Quietly, but you could feel it. He got up, walked straight to her room, and didn't even knock. Just opened the door and said, Get up. She was still in bed, sleeping like a baby who never had to earn a dime. When she realized Dad was holding a cardboard box, she sat up like a meerkat. What are you doing? She asked. He didn't answer. He just unplugged her desktop tower, wrapped the cords, and dropped it in the box. Calm, efficient, no yelling. Dad, that's mine. Nope, he said. Your brother bought it. I heard her throw a slipper at the wall. He took the switch next, then the laptop, then the Bluetooth keyboard. When she tried to grab one back, he blocked her hand and told her, You want these? Buy them yourself. Mom came running in like someone called 911. What is going on in here? He's taking my stuff, my sister shrieked, clutching her stuffed penguin like it was the last slice of dignity she had. No, Dad said. I'm taking his stuff. Mom stepped in his path like a linebacker, arms out. She needs these for school. She needs a reality check, he replied. He's moving out. I'm not going to let her treat him like garbage and keep enjoying the benefits. She's a child, Mark, Mom screamed. You're hurting her mental health. He didn't even blink. She's 17, not 5. She's old enough to know better. My sister was on the floor now, crying and mumbling nonsense like, This is abuse and I can't survive like this. Pretty bold talk for someone who still gets her clothes folded for her. Dad walked past them both and handed me the box without a word. The room was dead quiet except for her sobbing. I didn't say anything either. I wasn't going to rub it in or gloat. That would have made me just like her. Mom followed me into the hallway, fuming. You really think this solves anything? No, I said. But at least I don't have to keep funding the person calling me names every day. She scoffed. You're so dramatic. She's a kid. You're acting like you're the victim. I just smiled and said, Well, newsflash. I am. I took the box to my room and locked the door. Tossed it next to my closet and sat back down at my desk like nothing happened. 10 minutes later, I heard my sister slam her bedroom door. Then something heavy hit the wall. Probably her pillow or whatever statement she was trying to make this time. Later that night, I ordered takeout and ate in my room. Didn't feel like sharing a table with anyone. While I was watching YouTube, I heard footsteps outside my door. Then something thudded against it. Soft, but on purpose. I opened it. A pair of rolled-up socks lay on the floor. No note. Just passive-aggressive sock delivery. I didn't even react. Just stepped over it and closed the door again. By the time I went to sleep, I'd already blocked my sister on every app I could think of. If she wanted to keep being a menace, she could do it without my attention. Dad knocked once before bed. Said, I meant what I said. Let me know if you find a place. First 2 months, I'll cover them. I told him he didn't have to, but he insisted. I should have stopped this earlier. I didn't argue. He was right. The next morning, I moved half my stuff to my friend's place across town, so I could fully move in with him next week. I told him it was temporary, just till I got my own space. When I came back to grab more clothes, Mom barely looked at me, didn't speak, didn't blink, just kept peeling. My sister was nowhere in sight, but I could hear muffled sobbing through the wall. For once, I didn't feel guilty. They weren't crying because they missed me. They were crying because they were finally losing the ATM with a pulse. Barely 2 days after I moved half my stuff out, things started spiraling back at the house. My sister couldn't get into her Spotify. She freaked. Apparently, losing ad-free Ariana Grande was the final straw. She tore through the house like someone shut off her oxygen. Dad didn't react, just sat there sipping his coffee, while she slammed drawers and screamed about her freedom being stripped. I wasn't even home to see it, but I heard about it, because later that night she started running her mouth in the family group chats. At first, it was subtle. Can't believe how toxic some people become when they move out. Then it got bolder. She dropped my name, claimed I was emotionally unstable and prone to violent outbursts, said I hated women and always had. She even sent a message saying, if anything happens to me, just know who to blame. Like I was some villain in a teen drama. The messages were all vague enough to avoid direct accountability, but obvious enough that extended family would connect the dots. My uncle texted me separately. "Hey man, everything okay?" No idea what to say to that. What do you even say when your teenage sister is doing a PR smear campaign on WhatsApp? A cousin sent me screenshots. That's how I saw it myself. Full paragraphs about how I'd always belittled her, and how the stress of living with a narcissistic brother caused her to develop anxiety. She even tried to spin it like I was some misogynist who couldn't stand empowered women. Poor empowered? This is the same person who once said she shouldn't have to take out the trash because that's not aesthetic. I didn't respond. Let them type. I knew anything I said would be twisted, cropped, and passed around like gossip currency. Mom, of course, chimed in on her side. She wasn't just enabling it. She was part of it. In the thread, she called me cold, said I forgot where I came from, and added the classic, "He's changed since getting that job." Yeah, I changed. I stopped letting a teenager run my blood pressure into the stratosphere. Meanwhile, Dad stayed dead silent in all the chats. Didn't like or reply to anything. That was the most telling part. In our private texts, he sent one message. Don't let them get in your head. I see what's really going on. Still, it felt like watching people rewrite my life in real time. And these weren't strangers. They were family. People I grew up seeing every holiday. Now they were sitting around reading my sister's fan fiction and treating it like gospel. Back at the house, the chaos kept rolling. I came by to grab the last bin of my stuff. Walked in, stayed quiet. She didn't scream this time. She just hovered nearby, watching like a little creep. When I went to the kitchen, she accidentally spilled orange juice down the counter. No apology, no towel, just walked off smirking. Mom was in the living room pretending to read a book, but I could tell she'd been watching the whole thing. She didn't say anything, just shot me that, "Look what you've done to this family" face. Like I was the problem. I loaded the bin into my car and got ready to leave. Dad caught me at the front door. Told me he changed the lock on the garage after she tried to sneak in again to grab the laptop I took back. He looked tired. Said he was considering putting a padlock on it just in case. That's how far gone it was. The man was guarding the garage like it was Area 51. He told me my sister had tried to guilt him too. Said he was letting the patriarchy win by siding with me. Whatever that even means. Mom, meanwhile, stayed cold. Didn't speak to me once. I left without saying goodbye. Not because I was mad, but because there was nothing left to say. Back at my friend's place, I finally felt like I could breathe. He'd cleared a corner of his closet for me and tossed me an extra key. First thing I did was check the group chat again. New messages. This time, my sister claimed she had evidence of how abusive I'd been, and that she was considering going public. Sure, let her talk. That was my last thought before putting my phone on silent and dropping it face down on my desk. I didn't need to defend myself in group chats anymore. Let them believe what they want. I wasn't going to argue with people who think gossip counts as evidence. That piece lasted less than 12 hours. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from a coworker. Then a text. "Hey, you need to see this. It's about you." Attached was a TikTok. It didn't take long to load. My sister had posted a full-blown slideshow video. Dramatic music, slow transitions, and all. It started with a blurry photo of me at some family event, smiling and holding a plate of food. Then a caption in white text faded in over the image, "Living with emotional abuse." The next image was me playing guitar at a Christmas party. He yells. He threatens. He controls. Then one from my graduation. "I live in fear." And then, at the end, she posted a clip of our house exterior, front lawn, mailbox, everything, and tagged our high school in the caption. She used my full name. The actual caption read, "I don't feel safe. Not all abusers leave bruises. Pray for me." I watched the whole thing twice. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because I wanted to make sure I caught every detail. Her account was public. Her follower count had jumped since the last time I checked. Comments were pouring in. People were tagging each other, saying things like he needs to be arrested and file a report ASAP. There were classmates from her school in there. A couple even claimed they'd always had a bad feeling about me. And the worst part? Some of my own students had liked the post. I didn't panic. I didn't throw anything or yell or pace. I took a deep breath, stood up, and got to work about what I already warned her. I was going to report it first. I took screenshots of everything, every frame, every comment, every username. I copied the video link, saved the audio, and backed up the post through a screen recording. I emailed all of it to myself. Then I forwarded everything to my lawyer. I'd already been in contact with him weeks ago when the group chat stuff started. This was the kind of evidence he was waiting for. After that, I contacted my principal. I didn't want them to hear about it from anyone else. I explained the situation calmly and attached the video. By noon, I was sitting in the front office of the high school, explaining the context again face to face. To their credit, they didn't accuse me of anything. The admin team was professional. They said I handled it exactly right. They told me not to engage with her online or offline. Just let the legal side take over. By the end of the day, my sister was pulled into a disciplinary meeting with the dean at her grade level. According to someone who overheard it, she cried the second she walked in and claimed I was trying to ruin her future because she was more popular. The school suspended her on the spot. 2 weeks minimum. Social media privileges removed from all student groups. Academic probation. Parents notified. That's when the second meltdown started. The one inside the house. My phone lit up with texts from my mom. You didn't have to take it this far. She's just a child. You've destroyed our family. You've always been jealous of her. How dare you bring lawyers into this? I didn't reply. Not one word. She followed up with voicemails, all frantic. Crying in some, yelling in others. Begging, threatening, guilt-tripping. She cycled through every manipulation style like she was speed-running a therapy diagnosis. Then she showed up to the school. Not kidding. She actually marched into the front office the next morning and demanded a meeting with the principal. Claimed the school was targeting her daughter, that the allegations were misunderstood jokes, and that I was weaponizing my job to bully the family. Security had to walk her out when she wouldn't leave. Apparently, she tried to grab a stack of flyers off the table on her way out and threw one on the floor, yelling that she'd be lawyering up too. I only found out because the secretary emailed me later and said, "Let us know if she comes to your apartment. We'll write an incident report." I didn't even bother asking why they assumed she would. They were probably right. Meanwhile, my sister's post got taken down by TikTok. Not because she deleted it, because my lawyer filed a DMCA takedown and a defamation report. It was flagged as harmful misinformation and removed within 24 hours. That same day, the cease and desist letter arrived at the house. My lawyer made sure it was addressed directly to my mom as her guardian. The wording was clean. No threats. Just a very firm warning that if another defamatory post went public, we'd pursue full civil penalties. I never saw the actual reaction, but Dad told me what happened. She threw the letter across the room, screamed that I was suing a baby, and locked herself in the bathroom for an hour. My sister? Apparently she called my aunt and said I was legally bullying her, and that he's going to have me arrested for existing. A few family members reached out to me again. This time the tone had changed. One cousin messaged me, "I didn't realize it got that bad." She really tagged the school? Yup, she did. The tide was turning. That night, I had dinner with my friend. I told him everything. He just nodded and said, "I think she forgot you weren't playing the same game." I slept better that night than I had in months, but the fallout was far from over. The next morning, my lawyer called. Said we had a hearing scheduled with juvenile mediation court. Nothing criminal, just standard protocol. A formal response to the cyberbullying. We'd submit the evidence. She'd be required to attend with my mom. If she didn't, the school could escalate it to the board. I thanked him, hung up, and looked out the window. My phone buzzed again. Another cousin. "She's saying you're trying to ruin her future out of revenge." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop, checked my calendar, and highlighted the court date. Funny thing is, I haven't even started yet. That was the thought sitting quietly in the back of my head while everything around them started breaking apart. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. By the time the court notice landed at the house, the damage was already done. The school had already issued the suspension. Her TikTok account was still disabled. Every classmate who'd reshared her video got hit with temporary bans from school activities. Some even unfollowed her. Word spreads fast when the story doesn't add up. Apparently, my sister tried to flip the script at school, saying she was just raising awareness. But no one was buying it, especially when screenshots started circulating, the ones with her caption tagging the school and accusing me by name of abuse. Now she was walking through hallways with her head down. Even her usual followers didn't want to sit with her at lunch. One teacher overheard her muttering that she didn't mean for it to blow up like that. Too late. The court hearing wasn't even a full trial, just mediation, standard for juvenile civil disputes. Still, she had to show up in person with my mom. A real judge, real documents, no filters, no dramatic background music. My lawyer said she kept her head down the whole time. Mom, on the other hand, wouldn't shut up. She ranted about how the whole thing was a witch hunt and that I was targeting a child out of spite. The judge reminded her daughter was 17, not some helpless toddler, and that tagging someone's workplace in false abuse claims wasn't protected under teenage drama. They were forced to sign a formal agreement to remove all public content about me and avoid any further contact. Any violation? Civil court? Real penalties. That should have been the end of it, but of course it wasn't. 2 days later, the building's security called me. Said there was a woman banging on the lobby door asking to be let in. Said she was just trying to talk to her son. I knew exactly who it was. I didn't go down. Just let her stand there while the security guard told her to leave. She cried on the sidewalk for a while, sitting on a bench like someone abandoned her. Eventually, she left. I didn't say a word. An hour later, she sent me a 6-paragraph email through an old Gmail I forgot I had. She called me heartless. Said I destroyed my sister emotionally. Said she cries every night. That I should have just taken the high road instead of ruining their lives over some online drama. She ended it with, "You're not the son I raised." No argument there. That weekend, my dad stopped by with pizza. He sat down at my little kitchen table and looked 10 years younger. Said he barely slept at home anymore. Said the silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was awkward. Like they were walking around pretending the walls weren't closing in. Then came the letter. Monday morning, I checked my mailbox and found a plain envelope with no name. Inside was a wrinkled notebook page, written in sharp, uneven pen strokes. My sister's handwriting. She asked me not to press charges. Not because she was sorry, but because it's already bad enough. Still no apology. Just a guilt trip wrapped in victim language. I folded the letter and shoved it in a drawer. I wasn't planning on suing her for money. This wasn't about revenge. This was about shutting it down and making sure she knew she couldn't run her mouth and hide behind the word teenager forever. But then, a couple nights later, I got a heads up from Dad. They're on the way to your place again. I told them not to, but your mom insisted. This time, she brought backup. I told the security guard to let them in this time. My buddy was out, and honestly, I was just curious what they had to say. I'd already seen them sitting on the hallway floor through the peephole before they even knocked. Mom had one of those dollar store food containers in her lap, something homemade and sad-looking. Sister was hunched over, arms around her legs, not crying, but not talking either, just sitting there. I opened the door. No words, no expression. Just stepped aside and walked back in. They followed me in slowly, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to be inside, or just hoping I wouldn't change my mind. I sat at the kitchen table. They stood for a second, then awkwardly took the seats across from me. No one touched the food. My sister kept her eyes on the floor. Mom kept looking at me like she was trying to figure out which version of me she was dealing with. The one who used to fix their Wi-Fi and pay for groceries, or the one who dragged them into court and shut everything down. Mom broke the silence first. "You look tired." I didn't answer. She tried again. We didn't come to fight. Still nothing from me. Eventually, she started rambling, talking about how things got out of hand, how my sister was just venting, how it all escalated faster than they expected. The words "is sorry" and "wrong" never made an appearance. It was a lot of, "we were emotional and you misunderstood." She said they hadn't been sleeping, that my sister was in a bad place, and that she had so much pressure from social media. She even tried to compare it to how I used to be moody in college. I just sat there. Let her speak. Let the guilt trip run its full course. When she paused, I turned to my sister. "You have something to say?" She looked up slowly. Eyes red, makeup smudged, clearly not used to being on the losing side of anything. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she muttered. "I was just mad. That was it." I waited for more. Some accountability. Anything that sounded like an actual apology. But no. She stared at me like I was supposed to say, "It's okay," and hand her a redemption arc. Instead, I leaned back in my chair. "You tried to ruin my job. You told people I abused you. You made it public. And now that there's consequences, you're mad it didn't go your way." "I didn't think they'd take it seriously," she said. "It was just TikTok. Really, you tagged my school and used my name. That's not a joke. That's a hit piece." Mom reached across the table with the container. "We made lasagna. Your favorite." I stared at it. "Cool. Leave it by the trash on your way out." Her face twitched. That moment where she realized the sympathy card was maxed out. I stood up, walked to the door. They didn't follow right away. Mom looked like she was trying to come up with one last monologue. Sister just sat there looking like she was waiting to get grounded. "You came here hoping I'd let this go," I said flatly. "You thought if you cried enough, brought some food, played the victim, it'd erase what happened." Mom opened her mouth. I cut her off. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm done. You wanted me to listen, I did. But don't mistake that for a reset." They stood, No hugs, no fake smiles, just silence. As they walked out, Mom looked back one last time. Her voice cracked. Are you really cutting us off? No, I'm just making it official, I said. I'm just done being the one getting cut. I shut the door, locked it, stood there for a second, listening to their steps fade down the hallway. Dad called later that night. Said he was staying with his brother for a while. Said he was proud of me for not backing down, even when they started guilt tripping. I asked if he was okay. Honestly, he said, first time I felt sane in months. We didn't talk long, didn't need to. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding my breath waiting for the next insult, next guilt trip, next fake apology. For once, I had the silence, and they had to sit with the noise they created.